Chapter 181. From now on, I am Konoha's sixth Hokage. Notices plastered the towns, cities, and villages across the Land of Fire. The preliminary rounds of Konoha's Chunin exams had just finished, and many examinees eliminated in the earlier stages were already returning home, carrying the same shocking news to every corner of the ninja world. In an age where technology was lagging and news usually trickled, Konoha had become the center of attention in less than 2 days. The sensational report was this. Tsunade had stepped down, and the office of Hokage had a new occupant. The successor was not a mysterious elder or a veteran general, as some had hoped, but the young prodigy everyone had been whispering about, Izanami. Izanami, a Konoha Year 60 graduate, had been hailed early on as a ninjutsu genius. He mastered 5 nature transformations at a young age, and to everyone's surprise, he was the second person in Konoha after Hashirama to awaken wood release. Rumors said he was a Senju descendant who'd abandoned his family name and become part of the village. Right after graduation, he developed a wood clone that required no hand seals and mastered a rare flying technique. He was promoted to Chunin the same year and topped every bounty list on the black market, a popularity and notoriety rivaling Itachi's when he went rogue at 13. People assumed his future would be defined by steady rise. Then the world shifted. The leader of Akatsuki and Otsutsuki Toneri appeared, dwarfing Izanami in fame. Just when many began to dismiss him as a mere bright, promising spark, Izanami struck back in a way no one expected. What should have been a duel between 2 supreme powers became a 3-way standoff when Izanami inserted himself into the climax, and the final turn of events, including the revival of Uchiha Madara, left the ninja world balanced among 4 super-tier combat forces. Even then, most underestimated Izanami, convinced he lagged behind Madara and Toneri. But when his chakra flared and rippled across the world, critics fell silent. Genius is not a thing readily explained by ordinary standards. It is sudden and irreversible. Izanami's presence as one of the 4 top powers, coupled with his restraint, having left Konoha intact and without slaughter during Madara's departure, proved his deterrent might. Now that same power had taken the village's highest seat. Izanami had become Konoha's 6th Hokage. Has he really taken office? Uchiha Madara's visit must have pushed the rest into acting. At the Iwagakure Tsuchikage Hall, Onoki let out a rare, deep sigh of relief when he heard the news. 2 years earlier, when wood release had returned and no obvious successor had emerged, Onoki had felt the weight of being the pinnacle of the 5 Kage with no heir to match him. He'd worried that without a strong balance, Iwagakure and the other nations would face danger. But now 4 super-tier figures existed, 3 of them hostile, and only 1 effectively aligned with the 5 great nations. A disruptive force that could overly tilt the balance of power would unite the 5 great nations against it. With Izanami officially one of the 5 Kage, Konoha had reclaimed its old strength, and the other Kage could relax, knowing Izanami would help hold the world steady. Not only the Kage, but the feudal lords breathed easier too. As long as Izanami remained outside the formal government, he was technically just another elite jonin, unaccountable, semi-retired, and free to refuse orders. Clan heads and high-ranking nin were often hard to command, and their loyalty tended to be situational. Having Izanami installed as Hokage, however, meant the Land of Fire now had a guardian deity of unparalleled power who would respond if the feudal lord's mansion were threatened. The old, unspoken system. 1 country, 1 village, feudal lords in charge of politics, the Kage in charge of military, suddenly felt sensible again when backed by someone like Izanami. July 16th, Konoha Year 62, 11:25 a.m. Konoha Central Street throbbed with people. Every alley and open area filled to capacity. Konoha villagers, citizens from across the Land of Fire, and even foreigners had come. From above, the crowd formed a dense, moving black mass. Ninja Academy students and chakra-capable shinobi stood on walls, roofs, and lampposts to see the roof of the newly rebuilt Hokage building, where everyone expected to see the new Hokage appear. The crowd buzzed with excitement and pride. 62 years ago, Hashirama Senju rose up with wood release and ended the age of warring states. Konoha's government is back in the hands of a wood release user. We'll stop being bullied. With Lord 16 Knights here, there'll never be a Konoha crush or a Ninetales attack again. The Senju return is real. They're Konoha's true roots. Lord 16 Knights only graduated in year 60, and already he's the strongest among the 5 great shinobi countries. My kid was still a genin at that age. Even the 4th Hokage can't compare. This record for youngest 5 Kage probably won't be broken. On the roof of a nearby building, some rookies who'd attended past inaugurations watched, amazed by the crowd. It feels like the whole village is here, one said. They said there are tourists from other countries too. Look, the crowds stretch beyond Central Street, another added. It's surreal. We only graduated 2 years ago. Wasn't Izanami fighting Lee not long ago? How did he become Hokage so fast? When I was a kid, I thought wood release was just a legend, but now I get how our ancestors felt. Damn it, Izanami got the job before me. Not fair. Uchiha Sasuke folded his arms and watched Uzumaki Naruto beside him turn envious, eyes glazing at the sight of the new Hokage. Sasuke leaned in and teased with deadpan cruelty. Stop daydreaming. 15 Knights is only a little over a month older than me and less than 4 months older than you. Don't think you'll be 7th Hokage this lifetime. Naruto went pale as Sasuke's words landed like a hammer. He'd always vowed to be Hokage, and the idea of a peer taking the post first hit him hard. A tiny chibi ghost seemed to appear above his head, muttering, "No hope." He bit his collar to hold back tears. Damn Izanami. He stole my spot. If he doesn't do a good job, I'll kick him out later. Sasuke smirked, reassured in a strange way that Naruto remained stubborn and unchanged. Looking up at the Hokage building roof as a figure appeared, his lips twitched. That guy's still arrogant. A shout rang out. Lord 16 Knights is here. Excitement swelled into roar as a tall figure stepped onto the rooftop. He wore a white combat robe covered by a white cloak with flame patterns and the bold characters naming him 6th Hokage embroidered along the hem. His short black hair, aided by a clever wood clone jutsu, neatly framed his face. Blue eyes like a clear sky sat in a youthful, sharply featured face. He was handsome, yes, but what stood out was the calm, reliable presence he radiated, like a great tree. Hokage-sama! Someone cried, and the entire crowd followed in a unified cheer. Izanami picked up the hat Tsunade had passed to him. With authority and steady breath, he announced, From now on, I am Konoha's 6th Hokage. The cheers rose again, and daytime fireworks burst over Konoha. A new era began. As the saying went, a new ruler brings new ministers. Izanami's rise immediately altered the village's power structure and cemented the Hyuga clan's status. Rumors said his childhood companion and deskmate from the academy, the Hyuga main branch heiress, was his partner, and Hyuga Hiyashi found himself living the good life with a son-in-law occupying Konoha's highest seat. On his first day in office, Izanami made his approach clear. The Hokage would not micromanage everything. He delegated authority to capable subordinates and declared that the era of the Hokage handling every little task personally was over. The Hokage's role, he argued, was to be the village's guardian, the ultimate combat power. If the guardian burned himself out doing paperwork, the village was sabotaging its own defense. Izanami's trust in his subordinates was backed by the fact that as the strongest among the 5 great shinobi countries, his power kept anyone from seizing control. All he needed was to show up in the office, or to have a wood clone handle routine matters, while day-to-day administration was handled by professionals. His official secretaries were Hinata and Karin. If not for their youth, Izanami joked, he might enjoy the formalities more. The clans welcomed this arrangement, particularly the Hyuga and the Nara, long relied upon during wartime, and now restored to prominent positions in Konoha's command. Izanami's second major action as Hokage was more sweeping. He abolished the Elder Council. Utatane Koharu and Homura Mitokado retired, and the role of Hokage's assistant was removed. No one protested. These changes came with the backing of the feudal lords, and refusing the orders of the village's supreme military leader, backed by the nation's highest authorities, would be dangerous. For the feudal lords, Izanami's election made the Land of Fire safer. They would accede to his requests, whether for increased security or greater military funding, as long as he didn't meddle in politics. The feudal lords, the first to institutionalize the one country, one village system, understood what transcendent combat power meant. They knew how to bend governance to keep the realm stable. Izanami was pleased with that understanding. Had the feudal lords resisted his moves to reclaim centralized authority, he could have quietly replaced them. His reincarnation-ized remote puppets could remove a lord without anyone realizing the manipulation. Now, with power consolidated and the village under his command, Konoha had become Izanami's domain. He could set its course as he saw fit. Chapter 182, The Butterfly Effect, Uchiha Sasuke's Mangekyo-rin. Hokage-sama, the envoys who delivered the invitations have all returned. Karin, dressed in a black suit, said this to Izanami, who sat on a sofa made of chakra beads. She smiled with her beautiful eyes, feigning respect. Izanami didn't look up from the scroll in his hands. How did they reply? He asked without looking up. Third Tsuchikage Onoki and acting Kazekage Chiyo both politely declined, citing their age. However, they'll be sending the leading candidates for the next Tsuchikage and Kazekage to observe Konoha's Chunin exams, Karin reported. Fifth Mizukage accepted and will arrive in Konoha before the official matches begin. As I expected. Izanami finally looked up. What about the hidden cloud and the hidden rain? Hidden Cloud refused, Karin said playfully. They're still furious with us for the losses during the second exam. Fourth Raikage feels humiliated, so they refused outright. And the envoys, were they harmed? No. Even if they'd had the stomach for it, they wouldn't have dared touch our envoys. Karin straightened her back. Those roughnecks finally know what pain feels like. She smiled. If they knew the truth, their faces would be priceless. Karin and Shion had envied Hinata ever since they learned Izanami was Otsutsuki Toneri. A love from the sky couldn't compare to childhood sweethearts who'd grown up together. Hinata's third birthday kidnapping had led, years later, to a brutal payback on that birthday. Karin had thought Margaret's necklace was Hinata's best gift from Izanami, but she hadn't expected the destruction of the hidden cloud to top it. What did the hidden rain say? Izanami asked. They accepted, Karin answered, her expression turning serious. Akatsuki's leader will come to Konoha to observe the Chunin exams. Karin looked worried and asked, Hokage-sama, do we really need to invite someone so powerful to Konoha? It was a reasonable concern. Super-tier combatants were a different kind of threat from the Five Kage. Uchiha Madara's exit from Konoha had terrified the village. The Fire Country's feudal lords had even pressured Tsunade to step down early. If the Five Kage were to confront each other openly, even someone as powerful as the Third Raikage could be overwhelmed by tides of enemy shinobi. If a super-tier fought across the great shinobi countries, the least likely outcome might be the fall of a village. The worst could be the complete annihilation of a country. Battlefields like the Valley of the End, the Land of Rain, and the Fire Country's great forests still bore scars that hadn't healed. Izanami smiled faintly. Don't worry, our guest is a decent man. He won't cause trouble. For good reason, Izanami had watched Nagato and Uchiha Madara closely with wood clones, monitoring them daily. Neither man remained the raving ideologue they had once been. Both had been broken of their grandiose plans and had recovered from their delusions. Both, in fact, now genuinely wanted to save the world and keep the peace. Unless someone interfered, they would not kill. Indeed, they would even help those in need. Uchiha Madara, healed from his defeats, had been traveling the world with Uchiha Obito searching for traces of Otsutsuki Ishiki. Nagato had restrained Akatsuki's remaining members and, with Konan, quietly managed a corner of the hidden rain so its people could live peacefully. Under their influence, the major nations grew more restrained and the minor ones behaved. The five great shinobi countries had had few high-level missions for a long time. Life had become quieter, and Nagato, awakened from his dream, came to like that peace and wanted it to continue. That was why Izanami had sent the invitation. Karin nodded, reassured by Izanami's judgment. Just then the office door opened. Hinata entered in a white kimono instead of a suit, escorting Uchiha Sasuke. Hokage-sama, Sasuke-kun is here, Hinata announced. Izanami smiled. You've worked hard, Hinata. He gestured to the sofa. Have a seat. Sasuke didn't sit down immediately, nor did he demand to know why he'd been summoned. He crossed his arms and, half smiling, teased, Should I change how I address you now and start calling you Hokage-sama? You can keep it the same, or... Izanami waved, then suddenly grinned and said, Just call me Godfather. Your personality is still vile. Sasuke ground his teeth. If he couldn't beat Izanami, he wanted to give him a piece of his mind. But remembering the pile of embarrassing memories Izanami had on him, Sasuke forced himself to calm down. He snorted, "Fine, say what you want." Izanami leaned back, took a glass of water from Hinata, sipped it, and didn't immediately say why he'd called Sasuke. Instead, he asked, "How long has Team 7 been without missions?" "A few months. Why?" "Do you know why you haven't had missions for so long?" Izanami didn't wait for an answer. "Because you and Naruto have reached ace combatant level. With Sage Mode, your strength even surpasses Kakashi's. Unless it's an S-rank or super S-rank secret mission, sending 3 ace combatants on ordinary work is a waste." He continued, smiling. Fifth Hokage had planned to split Team 7 once you were all around Jonin, like Team 8, so you could excel in your roles. "I summoned you because I want to arrange a decent position for you." Sasuke's expression flickered. "What position?" "I want you to be the Anbu director," Izanami said. "A role that can command all the Anbu squads. As my godson, you should be second only to me. Are you interested?" Sasuke's eyes widened. "Anbu director? You mean it?" "Of course." Izanami smiled. "There's no one else suited for this but you. I trust you." Hearing that, warmth rushed through Sasuke. Flashing memories, fishing trips, barbecues, Izanami's teasing, fights, advice, training surged through him. Since the Uchiha's destruction, Sasuke had shut his heart up tight. Only 2 people had gotten in over the years. One was Naruto, a rival who shared his pain. The other was Izanami, more a brother than any of his relatives, a mentor who had egged him on and taught him in ways they hadn't. He had become a secret Izanami fan, even swapping out Kakashi's Chidori for the storm-style techniques Izanami had shown him. To be recognized by Izanami like this felt like a son finally getting his father's approval. Sasuke forced his pride into a pout and said, "Humph, since you have no one else, I'll be merciful and help." Hinata and Karin, who'd long known his ways, covered their mouths and snickered. "Thank you," Izanami said, unusually warm. Then he grew serious. "There's another reason I called you. It's about the truth behind the Uchiha clan massacre." The light, warm atmosphere in the Hokage's office dropped like a curtain. Hinata and Karin stopped smiling and stood quietly. Sasuke's Sharingan instinctively flared to 3 tomoe. His voice trembled. "The truth of the massacre? What do you mean?" "This is a secret I was only entitled to know after becoming Hokage," Izanami said heavily. "I've hesitated whether to tell you, but you're a living person. You don't need to be a puppet in someone else's plot. I'm going to tell you everything I know." Izanami cast a genjutsu, pulling Sasuke, Hinata, and Karin into an illusion. He showed them the events that had led to the Uchiha's downfall. The suspicions after the Nine Tails attack, the Uchiha being moved from Central Street to land by the Nanga River and put under surveillance, the coup, Shisui's death, Itachi's role as a double agent, and finally Danzo Shimura using Sasuke as a bargaining chip to trigger the night of the massacre. Hinata and Karin covered their mouths, eyes misting. "Too cruel," they breathed. Sasuke stared, stunned. Seeing Itachi had protected him by making himself the villain was like a string snapping inside Sasuke. Something in him ruptured. A chilling surge of yin chakra burst from his brain and gathered in his eyes. The 3 tomoe in his crimson pupils spun like gears. So fast they left black afterimages. A cracking sound, like glass shattering, split through Hinata and Karin's ears. The illusion collapsed into shards. Terrifying chakra filled the Hokage's office, but no alarm blared. Since Izanami had taken office, the Hokage's building had been busy, but the top floor was now tightly sealed. Only those summoned or approved by Izanami could enter. Its inner walls were covered in jutsu formulas. Unless chakra could break the barrier, whatever power Sasuke released wouldn't be noticed outside. After a time, the 3 tomoe in Sasuke's eyes slowed and stopped. His eyelids drooped, and 2 thin streams of blood trickled from the corners of his eyes. When he opened them again, a brilliant crimson light burst forth. The 3 tomoe were gone, replaced by a black sun made of 6 small triangles, unmistakably a Mangekyo Sharingan. "So, such a powerful dojutsu and chakra," Karin whispered, stunned. Her Kagura mind's eye was picking up the raw strength of Sasuke's chakra. Hinata, whose Byakugan had evolved into a more exclusive dojutsu, felt an oppressive pressure rolling off him. Izanami's surprise was plain. This pattern wasn't a hexagram, a butterfly effect, something he'd set in motion, had altered the outcome. If it wasn't the hexagram pattern, then Sasuke's techniques wouldn't be the Amaterasu and Kagutsuchi from the original timeline. So what were his abilities now? The pattern nagged at Izanami's memory. It looked oddly familiar, too familiar for someone who'd transmigrated late. In the era when the Uchiha were still whole, only Shisui, Fugaku, and Itachi had wielded Mangekyo Sharingan, and their patterns didn't look like this. Then a flash of recognition hit Izanami. He remembered seeing this pattern, not in the Shippuden era, but in a later generation. Boruto. The sun pattern Mangekyo belonged to Sarada Uchiha, Sasuke's daughter. The father had awakened the daughter's eye. The butterfly effect had just gotten outrageously out of hand. Chapter 183, Souls Fly Away, Brothers Meet Again. Looking at Uchiha Sasuke, two streaks of bloody tears cutting down his face, Izanami asked, "What do you plan to do next?" "I want to learn the full truth about the clan's annihilation." Having awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan, Sasuke's temperament had shifted, but unlike the original story, he hadn't lost himself to madness. He spoke calmly. "I'm going to find Orochimaru and have him perform impure world reincarnation to summon Danzo Shimura and Hiruzen Sarutobi so I can read their memories." "And then," Izanami pressed, "if you confirm it was them, what will you do?" Sasuke fixed Izanami with his Mangekyo and asked plainly, "If I decide to take revenge, will you stop me?" "What do you think?" Izanami smiled. That smile brought a faint warmth to Sasuke's shattered heart. The bond between them needed no elaborate assurances. If Izanami had intended to control him like a puppet, he could have kept the truth hidden. He hadn't. Izanami had said he didn't want Sasuke's fate decided by others. He wanted Sasuke, as a living person, to think for himself. So although Sasuke's outward demeanor seemed chaotic, internally he was remarkably composed. His decision to consult Orochimaru wasn't born of distrust toward Izanami, but of a desire to know every detail before deciding how to deal with Itachi. Sensing Sasuke's resolve, Izanami stood and told Hinata and the other girl, "I'll take Sasuke out for a bit. I'll leave things here to you." "Don't worry, Izayoi-kun. We'll handle everything," Hinata and the other girl said in unison. With that, Izanami used the Flying Thunder God technique and teleported away from Konoha with Sasuke at his side. "Izayoi-kun, Sasuke-kun, long time no see," Orochimaru said when they appeared in his underground base. He was calm and almost genial. He had grown used to sudden visitors. Even seeing Sasuke's Mangekyo with its unusual black sun pattern did not ignite the old hunger in Orochimaru's eyes. He seemed to have let go of some obsession with the Sharingan. "Long time no see, Lord Orochimaru," Izanami replied with a smile. "I'm here to trouble you again. As long as it's within my abilities, it's nothing," Orochimaru said dryly, then could not help but ask, curious, "But Izayoi-kun, may I ask you something? What was that chakra from earlier?" Kabuto, who was cleaning his tools, and Sasuke both turned toward Izanami. Orochimaru's question echoed the curiosity of the entire ninja world. Except for Uchiha Madara, Hinata, and a few others, most, Tsunade, Shizune, and even Sasuke, had no idea what that power had been. For many, ignorance was a mercy. Prematurely knowing about another dimension or a higher plane could rob them of the drive to become stronger. Izanami sighed, then answered with a knowing smile. "That chakra was my Sage Mode reaching a new form. It's called Six-Path Sage Mode." "Six-Path Sage Mode?" Orochimaru and the others were momentarily stunned. Then Orochimaru's pupils constricted as a turbulent thought washed through him. The existence of the Rinnegan and talk of the reincarnation eye had already made the legend of the Sage of Six Paths seem less myth than history. Now, Izanami claiming a Six-Path Sage Mode made it seem possible that he had inherited some legacy of that figure, or at least tapped into powers comparable to that legend. "Can Sage Mode be sublimated?" Sasuke asked quietly. "Yes," Izanami said honestly, "but not in a way most people could ever achieve. One of the basic requirements for such a sublimation is mastery of 7 elemental natures to their extreme degree." Orochimaru and Kabuto's expressions hardened. To master 7 natures at the extreme level was beyond extraordinary. Even those who knew all 7 often weren't truly proficient in them. Those who specialized had only a few to the highest level. Hiruzen had cultivated 5 at top level. Even he hadn't reached such extremes. If Izanami had truly mastered 7 extremes, perhaps he had fused multiple Kekkei Genkai, or something even stranger? Sasuke took it in stride. He had seen Izanami's talents before. He turned to Orochimaru. I need to read the memories of Hiruzen Sarutobi and Danzo Shimura. Can you perform impure world reincarnation to summon them? Orochimaru was intrigued. Hiruzen Sarutobi is no problem. When I retrieved my arm's souls, I also gathered the past Hokage spirits. I have a medium for Hiruzen. And Danzo? Izanami interjected. I'm unsure about Danzo, Orochimaru admitted. After all, he was used as a trump card by Otsutsuki Toneri's puppet army. The sage's eye we faced makes things complicated. Danzo's soul might be trapped inside that puppet. Sasuke frowned. Do you have a medium for Danzo? Orochimaru gave a short laugh. If you hadn't asked, I might have forgotten. I do have his medium. He produced Danzo Shimura's severed left arm. Let's try, Izanami said. Orochimaru nodded. In a hall below, Kabuto brought 2 restrained captives forward. Orochimaru took the mediums and performed impure world reincarnation. As the tadpole-shaped seals spread, the 2 prisoners muzzled began to wriggle. White dust gathered, and soon 2 cracked, reconstituted figures stood before them, Hiruzen Sarutobi and Danzo Shimura. Do you want me to assist? Izanami asked Sasuke. No, just watch my body, Sasuke replied. He formed seals. Under Orochimaru and Kabuto's astonished eyes, his soul slipped from his body and entered Hiruzen's. Not long after, it flowed out of Hiruzen's head and into Danzo. Sasuke was using a forbidden S-rank technique from a sealing manual, the Spirit Transformation Technique. Its difficulty rivaled even the Flying Thunder God technique. In decades, only its developer and the infamous Kato Dan had truly mastered it. It had made Kato Dan a renowned sensing and assassination ninja. That a young Sasuke had learned it stunned even Orochimaru. Orochimaru felt a flash of envy, not merely for Sasuke's talent, but for his era. With 4 super-tier combatants on the scene, the world's ceiling had been broken. Everyone's growth had accelerated. In Orochimaru's time, the Mangekyo Sharingan was legendary. Now it was a common stepping stone among many prodigies. It was a bitter realization. Sasuke's soul returned, slipping out of Danzo and back into his own body. When he opened his eyes, his face was a mask of killing intent, his Mangekyo blazing as he stared at the motionless Hiruzen and Danzo. Izanami, do you have any technique that can kill their souls? Sasuke asked. You asked the right person, Izanami said, smiling. He raised his palm. A black substance coalesced there into a small orb, quickly growing to the size of a billiard ball. It was an unremarkable black sphere, but it made Orochimaru and Kabuto's hair rise. What is that? Orochimaru breathed. A tailed beast ball isn't even in the same league, Izanami said lightly. It's a truth-seeking ball, a symbol of 6-path sage mode and a product of the fusion of 7 nature transformations. With a flick, the truth-seeking ball became a black beam and shot out, slicing through Hiruzen's right shoulder. The immortal bodies of impure world reincarnation did not auto-repair that wound. Orochimaru and Kabuto stared, frozen. The truth-seeking ball has the power to erase creation, Izanami explained. Whether body or soul, whatever it touches turns to nothing. Even Sasuke, hungry for vengeance, stared in disbelief as the black orb hung in the air. Do you want me to obliterate their souls like this, Izanami asked, or let their consciousness awaken and watch their souls dissipate on their own? Do it, Sasuke said coldly. I don't want to see their faces anymore. Orochimaru, regaining composure, allowed himself a small, cruel grin. It's a pity Edo Tensei bodies don't feel pain, otherwise we could have enjoyed their screams. Izanami wasted no more words. He directed the truth-seeking ball to shatter Hiruzen and Danzo utterly, tearing their bodies and souls into non-existence. When the black light faded, they were gone. What's next? Izanami asked Sasuke. I want to see Itachi, Sasuke replied without hesitation. All right, I'll take you, Izanami said. Before leaving, Izanami addressed Orochimaru. Lord Orochimaru, prepare yourself. Shortly, I will pardon your crimes. You will no longer be an S-rank rogue ninja of Konoha. Then he teleported away with Sasuke, leaving Orochimaru and Kabuto staring at the spot where they had been standing. After a long silence, Kabuto finally said, Orochimaru, can we really return to Konoha? Images of the orphanage director and the place he'd been raised flickered through his mind. If anyone else said it, I might be skeptical, Orochimaru admitted, inspecting the immaculate floor. Then he smiled, not without relish. But if it's Izayoi-kun, perhaps we can not only return to Konoha, but be entrusted with important responsibilities. Orochimaru had eyes and ears in Konoha. He knew how the village had changed after Izanami dismantled the old Hokage-centric governance, abolished the Elder Council, and decentralized power among the great clans. Power flowed differently now, and for someone like Orochimaru, that opened new doors. Far away, across a desolate stretch of land, Itachi Uchiha and Kasame Hoshigaki were hurrying back toward the Land of Rain after taking black market contracts to earn money for the village hidden in the rain. Suddenly, they stopped as if sensing something. A tree root shot up from the ground ahead, a faint seal visible on its bark. In the next instant, Izanami and Sasuke appeared before them without warning. Kisame's skin crawled. Seeing Izanami, he broke into a cold sweat. Itachi's eyes, however, fixed on Sasuke's Mangekyo Sharingan. "Sasuke, you finally have the same eyes as mine?" He studied his brother's gaze, unreadable, while 1,000 thoughts churned behind those three tomoe. Chapter 184, The Troublemakers Gather, Sasuke's exclusive dojutsu. "Samehada, are you trembling?" As the Uchiha brothers faced each other, Kasame Hoshigaki felt Samehada, the sword that usually grew more excited with stronger chakra, tremble faintly beneath its bandages. It whined, a sound only Kasame could hear, as if urging him to flee. 2 years earlier, when he had encountered Izanami, Samehada had reacted with ravenous eagerness, like meeting a Jinchuriki and wanting to devour chakra at once. Now it felt no appetite at all, only fear. Kasame thought of the recent world-shaking chakra upheavals and had to admit such bizarre things existed. 2 years ago, the other party had been only a ninjutsu genius who had mastered dust release, but could not integrate it into a keke tota. Even if he had hidden wood release then, his strength would have been only around the 5 Kage level. In just 2 years, he had become something extra-dimensional, like Uchiha Madara. Compared to that, Itachi, said to have wiped out the clan at 13, seemed to have paled. From behind Kasame came a cold voice. "You're too much of an eyesore. For Nagato's sake, get lost." The warning left Kasame soaked in sweat. He felt as if he had performed a water release. He tried to vanish with a body flicker, but the scene rewound, and he found himself in a rain-lashed Rocky Mountain area. "Flying Thunder God Technique Transfer," Kasame muttered, recovering and forming hand seals to unleash sensing jutsu. He body flickered away in a hurry, and the scene snapped back to the desolate plain. Itachi's three-way Sharingan stared at Sasuke's Mangekyo for a long moment. Then Itachi probed with his chakra perception, and a flash of surprise crossed his face. Sasuke's chakra was immense. Not only had the yin chakra in his head increased, but his yang chakra had multiplied as well. In other words, his Sharingan had advanced, and his wood release had grown stronger. Itachi felt a complicated joy and gratitude toward Izanami. Even before making a move, he could feel a crushing presence from Sasuke. Sasuke had reached his level. Sasuke had awakened the Mangekyo 3 years later than Itachi, and with Hashirama cells he could withstand the strain. His ocular power might already surpass Itachi's. Frequent use of his dojutsu might not lead to blindness. In a few years, without eye transplants, he might be able to use a full Susanoo. If he ever received transplanted eyes, he could become a second Madara and even have a chance at awakening the Rinnegan. Itachi steadied himself and kept his face calm. "You've just gotten the same eyes as me, and now you're impatient for revenge," he said coolly. Whereas in the past, Sasuke would have snapped and attacked at once. Memories of his childhood with Itachi and the visions he'd seen through Hiruzen and Danzo's spirits flared through him now. His anger became a burning inferno. He focused on Itachi, gritting his teeth. "How long are you going to keep up this act?" Itachi's heart skipped, but he kept his composure. "What are you talking about?" "I know everything," Sasuke roared. "Why the clan clashed with the village, why Big Brother Shisui died, your double dealing with Danzo, everything. You left me alive, not to keep me as spare eyes, but so I would kill you and you could have my eyes to gain the eternal Mangekyo, right?" Sasuke gasped, face contorted. "You hid things from me, made me hate you, then had me slaughter our kinsmen so you could build a heroic legend on their corpses. Is that your ending? You had no right to decide my fate. Am I your puppet? I would rather die with father and mother than live like this." He screamed it like a wound opened raw. Listening to Sasuke's hysteria cut into Itachi like a blade. In the past, Itachi had convinced himself to do what he did because his body was failing and he had nowhere else to turn. The only way to find peace was death, liberation through Sasuke's hands. He had planned to hold out until Sasuke came. Now Sasuke had come with the same eyes, but instead of following the script, he exposed Itachi's facade and rejected the arrangement. Itachi felt sick. He swallowed the iron tang of blood in his mouth and forced his face back to coldness, changing the subject to keep control. "Since you awakened the Mangekyo," he said, "did you go see the stone tablet hidden beneath the clan's underground chamber?" Sasuke's anger faltered at the mention of the tablet. Not far away, Izanami sat on a branch formed by wood release and watched with interest. Since mastering Six-Path Sage Mode, Izanami's sensing had reached a T0 level. Like the epic exchange in the original Valley of the End fight, where Naruto and Sasuke slid into a galaxy-like chakra space to communicate, Izanami could link his chakra to others in a single thought and open a space where no deception could stand. Everyone could sense one another's true thoughts there. The ability let the Six-Path Sage Mode communicate without violating reason, making alliances possible. Izanami's mind's eye of the Kagura had matured alongside that ability. He could sense emotions and read inner thoughts. Itachi's cold expression might fool the younger Sasuke, but it could not fool Izanami. He could see Itachi's pain clearly and found the scene full of dark amusement. That was why Izanami had chosen to reveal the truth of the clan's annihilation directly to Sasuke now. Had he not become Hokage earlier than intended, he would not have told Sasuke so soon. He would have guided him afterward and prevented the self-destructive path from taking over. But fate had moved faster than planned. Now that he had to act sooner, Izanami had to trust genuine emotion to keep Sasuke on course. He'd always treated Sasuke like a son, and Sasuke, sensitive to sincerity, would feel that. Itachi's mention of the stone tablet drew Sasuke's attention, but his words faltered when Itachi suddenly clutched his chest, his face twisted. What happened to him?" Sasuke asked, looking toward Izanami. "He said a keyword," Izanami answered without hiding anything, flying down from the branch to stand beside Sasuke. The cursed seal inside him was triggered. Itachi's pain receded slowly. Sweat drenched his skin. Beside him, a fist-sized black hole opened, and two figures spilled from it, Madara and Obito. "It's you!" Madara's voice came first, but Sasuke's attention snapped to Obito. He smelled the man's involvement in the clan's tragedy and fury flared. He formed a storm-release sphere and fired a blue-white beam straight at the masked shinobi. In Izanami's genjutsu space, and through the memories Sasuke had seen in Hiruzen and Danzo's spirits, the masked man's role in the Nine Tails incident and the chain of events had been made plain. Sasuke hated Obito even more than Itachi now. The beam shot through Obito as if through fog and suddenly contracted, streaking toward Madara at his side. Madara didn't flinch. He simply used the Preta path to absorb the storm release and watched the murderous young man with something like approval and nostalgia. "These juniors nowadays have such short tempers," he said. "Not only his looks, but his temper is like Izuna's." Then he glanced at the wary Itachi and spoke lightly, eyes cold. "I felt the cursed seal shift just now. Were you trying to show your brother how to obtain the Rinnegan? It seems you guessed what I gained in the Valley of the End battle. Or are you still trying your old trick? Use Izanagi to rewrite your brother's will, make him a puppet to protect Konoha? That eye you obtained from God knows where. Hasn't it already exhausted its ocular power? Without Hashirama cells, how did you restore it so quickly?" Itachi had no answer. He had been shaping a new lie until the moment Madara's presence made him forget that Madara had implanted cursed seals across the Akatsuki, sealing lips about the Ten Tails and the Rinnegan. Madara's arrival exposed Itachi's half-formed story and confirmed Sasuke's suspicions. Itachi bowed his head, unable to meet his brother's eyes. For a breath, Sasuke was stunned, then let out a bitter laugh. "So the ending is still the same. You become a hero on top of my corpse. Am I just a puppet?" Two streaks of blood slid from the corners of his eyes. Then his ocular power erupted. The space around Obito, Madara, and Itachi twisted. A fist-sized black hole formed and then began to expand rapidly. It looked like Obito's Kamui, but it was fundamentally different. As it grew, it unleashed a terrifying gravity that shocked even Madara and those around him. This ability, Sasuke's exclusive dotsu, was the Great Sun Spirit. Chapter 185, Death of Uchiha Obito. This is Kamui? Uchiha Obito's eye widened behind his mask, disbelief written across his face. When had Kamui become so common? First, there was the young heiress of the Hyuga main family, whose Byakugan had awakened an uncanny ocular technique, one that resembled his own Kamui. Now Itachi's younger brother had awakened something like Kamui as well. Obito could not accept it. Then he felt something else, and his expression shifted. No, this isn't Kamui. A terrifying gravitational force surged from the black hole. Instinctively, Obito phased with Kamui and pushed himself away from the source. Madara leaned forward, then snapped back, eyes fixed on the rapidly expanding void. Such powerful gravity, and it even seeks a target on its own. What an extraordinary eye. Despite the gravity, the ground did not split, and Itachi, closest to the anomaly, was unaffected. Madara recognized the nature of the technique instantly. The expanding singularity failed to instantly annihilate Obito and Madara, so it shrank and split into two, returning to Sasuke's side. Seeing the twin black holes, Sasuke calmed and grasped their purpose. He quickly mastered control of the pupil's ability. His face twisted. Sasuke glared at Obito. "Izanami, hold Madara. I'm going to kill him." "All right, tell me if you need anything." Izanami nodded, watching the small black holes floating by Sasuke. He felt a shiver of astonishment. These were not mere phasings like Kamui. They generated gravity, true space-time curvature. In a world where ninja techniques rarely followed scientific rules, this black hole obeyed them. Gravity is a manifestation of space-time distortion. Neither Obito's nor Hinata's Kamui ever produced gravity, but Sasuke's did. To freely produce and control such gravity placed this ocular power dangerously close to rivaling Kamui's status as the strongest Mangekyo. Sasuke wasted no words. He hurled a small black hole, like a thrown shuriken, toward Obito. It flew with tremendous speed, leaving ripples through space-time as it passed. Though Obito was phased, a terrible premonition crawled through him. Even in a supposedly invincible phased state, a faintly dangerous aura emanated from that black hole. Trusting his instincts, he activated Kamui fully and slipped into the Kamui dimension. When the black hole reached where Obito had been, only lingering space-time ripples remained. Upon touching those ripples, the black hole anchored. Sasuke grinned coldly. "Anchored? You're finished." The black hole rapidly swelled and became a space-time gate, almost like a portal made with the Rinnegan. Sasuke slipped through it and, just as Obito had done before him, twisted and dove into the crushing void. Unless Sasuke recognized someone, the black hole's gravity would pull them in and crush them with warped space-time. For those he did recognize, the hole could be used for instantaneous space-time movement. In moments, the black hole vanished. Only Izanami, Madara, and Itachi remained on the barren field. Itachi snapped back to attention, worried for his brother. Madara, however, ignored the juniors and turned to Izanami with a smile. "Izanami, care for a chat? What do you want to talk about?" Izanami asked, intrigued. Madara only smiled. He shifted into six-path sage mode, released the Rinnegan's power, and poured it into Izanami, intending to draw him into a genjutsu world. Izanami could easily break ordinary Rinnegan illusions, and two people who had mastered six-path sage mode could usually perceive the outside even while trapped in genjutsu, so a sneak attack was difficult. Curious about Madara's intent, Izanami let the genjutsu take hold. If Izanami had not also mastered six-path sage mode, Madara would have tried to link their chakra directly, to turn him into an ally by sharing a chakra space conversation. But that was impossible now. Their sensing couldn't detect one another. Inside the genjutsu, Madara spoke first. "Do you know Otsutsuki Ishiki?" Izanami's interest spiked. The old habit of recruitment had surfaced. He raised an eyebrow, not feigning ignorance. "Besides Otsutsuki Toneri, are there other Otsutsuki still alive?" Madara smiled. "You've heard about the moon, then. Not surprising. We both reached that state. You know how strong sensing is there," Izanami said. "When you activated six-path sage mode, did you sense a third powerful chakra in this world, besides me and Toneri?" Madara asked. Izanami's face grew serious. "If you mean a chakra on our level, I did sense one, briefly. Then it vanished. That was Otsutsuki Ishiki." Madara did not hide it. He showed Izanami edited footage and began to explain. Ishiki had come to this planet with the rabbit goddess and held status even above Kaguya. For reasons unknown, Kaguya betrayed Ishiki and he nearly perished to the Ten Tails Maw. The survivor had to parasitize others to live on. Because of that parasitism, even the strongest puppets he controlled could not elude six-path sage mode sensing. During Kaguya's fall and the time of the Six Paths, and continuing into the present, Ishiki has been hiding in some unknown dimension. Izanami understood the implication. Madara was careful not to reveal everything about the divine tree and the chakra fruit arising after an Otsutsuki is consumed by the Ten Tails, but the message was clear. You want my help finding Ishiki? To be precise, we find him together. Madara's brow creased. My instincts say he's the greatest threat, a higher-level being than even Kaguya. We can't let him recover. Together, if we can locate the dimension he's hiding in, he won't escape. Izanami feigned thought. After a pause, he said slowly, I'm skeptical of the story, but if I have nothing else to do, I'll help verify it. That's enough. Madara smiled. If you need me, come. Don't be so sure about you, Izanami muttered, about to taunt. Then he sensed something, and his expression snapped into alert. The genjutsu shattered. A fist-sized black hole had appeared beside Madara. Obito, covered in blood, his Akatsuki cloak torn and his left arm missing, tumbled out, yelling, Madara, heal me. Obito's mask had been shattered. His left eye was blinded by Izanagi. Madara frowned. Obito, you're getting worse. I taught you my ninjutsu, all of it. You can't even beat a brat who just awakened his manjikyo? Although Obito was not his chosen heir, Madara had imparted many techniques, yin-yang release, six paths techniques, even the Ten Tails sealing. After all these years, Obito had not improved. He wasn't anywhere near the combined strength of the five Kage, and now he couldn't contend with Sasuke. Madara regretted using him as a pawn. Perhaps Kamui had been nothing more than luck. Obito, panting, relayed what he'd learned. His black hole works in other dimensions. It can absorb ninjutsu like the Preta path and even absorb and crush wood release. The gravity can take hold of me, so my attacks can't reach him. Regret filled him. If he'd known, he wouldn't have hidden in the Kamui dimension. Inside it, he couldn't phase out, and Sasuke's techniques countered him. If he hadn't activated Izanagi in time, Sasuke's black hole would have torn him apart. It was only Izanagi's temporary invincibility that let him escape. Absorb wood release? Madara's surprise was faint but genuine. He looked at the sudden black hole nearby and admired it inwardly. An eye that combines offense, defense, flight, and space-time control. That's already close to an ultimate ocular technique. Madara mused about the one limitation. The hole couldn't harm his limbo clones. That was some consolation. But he quickly recalled that his limbo had no effect on Izanami or Toneri, and his mood soured again. Facing those two would be like cutting off two of his own arms first. Then he noticed a branch wrapping around his right foot, grown at some moment while he'd been distracted. He turned to Izanami, who had appeared to cooperate, and found Izanami grinning. Personal grudges? Let them be, Izanami said. Madara vanished without warning. Because he had relaxed his guard against Izanami, and because the chakra used to grow the branch had come from behind him, Madara was successfully ambushed. Obito turned pale at the sight. Die! Sage art, white rage technique. Sasuke, now in sage mode, had flown out of the black hole. He spat a glowing red dragon from his mouth. Cradled within its claws was a black orb. The dragon bored into the orb and detonated, releasing a blinding white blast that resembled a Super Shinra Tensei. The land was swallowed by searing light and a deafening roar. The blast's shockwaves tore through Obito, whose Izanagi had just ended, and Itachi nearby. Both lost their sight and were racked with pain, instinctively covering their ears. The air vibrations hammered Obito's brain, numbing his bones and nearly preventing him from using Kamui. Only his iron will let him struggle through the pain, marshal his yin chakra, and activate the Kamui in his right eye to phase. Panting in the Kamui dimension, Obito did not notice a blue streak of light slicing through the dark toward him. Even if he had used sensing, he couldn't have detected it, not unless his sensing reached the level of detecting souls. The stream of light was a spiritual presence that flashed into Obito's body, and his face registered shock. This is a spear. Before he could finish the name, his gaze went blank. The battlefield that had been the Kamui dimension collapsed into his inner world, his mental space. But the fight was over as soon as it began. A small black hole appeared at his side, and Sasuke burst from it. Using Storm Release secret techniques, Sasuke formed a sword of light and drove it through Obito's heart. The spiritual body that had entered him re-emerged in a brutal slash, tearing Obito's torso in two. How is this possible? Obito's eyes lost focus as he stared at the cold figure before him. He could not accept that he had been felled by someone so young. Yet the numbness below his chest and the failing hold on consciousness told him it was real. "Death is only the beginning," Sasuke said darkly. "I will summon you with impure world reincarnation and then kill your soul. Only when your bones are ground to dust and your soul scattered will I be able to explain to the clan and avenge what you've done." Obito widened his eyes in terror. "No, don't kill my soul. I still want to." Sasuke gave him no further chance. He extended the Storm Release blade and split Obito's head cleanly down the middle, severing it. The man who had once shaped so much of the ninja world's fate, who had set the Nine Tails loose and orchestrated tragedies like the Bloody Mist's downfall, the once feared figure whom Izanami had long regarded as a potential threat, the central villain who had pulled strings behind countless calamities, died there. Before Sasuke, who had awakened a great sun spirit that countered Kamui, and who had been taught radical combat ideas by Izanami, combining spirit transformation techniques with the autonomy of wood clone tactics to maximize assassination efficiency, Obito was utterly without defense. Sasuke dispatched him as easily as one might strike down a mere fly. Chapter 186. Kakashi, whose head is this? Sasuke. Uchiha Obito. A fist-sized black hole blinked into existence out of nothing, then tore open and expanded. Uchiha Sasuke shot back through it. He landed expressionless. Izanami, reading the faint tremor of emotion in him, already knew the outcome. He asked quietly, "Is he dead?" Sasuke nodded once. There was no thrill of victory in him. He glanced at Uchiha Itachi across from them, Itachi's face tight with complicated grief, and murmured to Izanami, "I'm tired. Let's go back." Izanami reached out and patted Sasuke's shoulder, offering no words. "Sasuke." As Izanami prepared to take Sasuke away with the Flying Thunder God technique, Itachi's voice cut through the air. Izanami paused, chakra stilling, watching Sasuke with curiosity for his next move. Sasuke breathed in deeply, turned his back to Itachi, and spoke coldly. "You traded our clan for my life. I may not be the one to kill you, but I do not covet your eyes. I cannot stand to wear them. I will never forgive you. Izanami, let's go." "All right." With a slight, unreadable look toward the stunned Itachi, Izanami nodded and instantly teleported them both back to the Hokage office. Itachi watched the place where they vanished until Sasuke's words, "I will never forgive you," kept echoing through his head, unraveling the last fragile support he'd been clinging to. A hot bitterness rose in his throat and exploded out as a harsh cough. He spat a mouthful of fresh blood. Whatever strength and spirit remained in his already broken body plummeted. From now on, pain sharper than death itself would haunt this true shinobi. "Izayoi-kun, Sasuke-kun, you're back." Hinata and Karin, who had been helping Izanami with his affairs, jumped up to greet them. Izanami nodded, then looked at Sasuke's hollow expression and offered, "Do you want revenge? I can help you." Others only saw a literal offer of retaliation, but Sasuke understood the deeper meaning. Did he want to strike back and destroy the families of those who participated in the massacre? The thought of someone in Konoha, especially the 6th Hokage, offering to help warmed something in him, but he shook his head. "No, I am not Uchiha Itachi." Itachi could have hardened himself and slaughtered innocents. Sasuke could not. Even in the darkest original timeline, Sasuke had held back from slaughtering the innocents who mocked Itachi. He had restrained Suigetsu from indiscriminate killing. That was why he could never forgive Itachi. If Itachi had spared Sasuke and let Root kill the rest, Sasuke might have forgiven and retaliated, but Itachi chose to perform the killings himself. That was unforgivable. "I'm not qualified to kill him, nor to forgive him." "You don't have to kill them," Izanami said with a small smile. "You can punish them. From now on, you'll be Konoha's Anbu commander, second only to one person, higher than 10,000. Do whatever you want." The notion stirred Sasuke. He remembered how the elders had forced the Uchiha out of Central Street, how their district had been carved up. Those civilians who'd grown comfortable on the Uchiha's lands had fed off their suffering. He wanted them to feel what it had been like to have the clan targeted. Finding a new purpose, Sasuke nodded. All right, go rest for a few days. Come back when you've recovered, Izanami said, patting his shoulder again. If you have troubles, tell me. If you need help, ask. Don't brood. Sasuke nodded and, as if remembering, produced a small box carved from wood release and handed it to Izanami. These are his eyes. The ocular ninjutsu is strong. They're for you. Very well, I'll take them. Izanami accepted the box with a pleased smile. Hinata had awakened her own ocular gift, and Sasuke had awakened the great sun spirit. Kamui no longer occupied his thoughts so much, but an adopted son presenting such precious eyes still pleased Izanami. Sasuke would now be his primary enforcer. With the Manjikyo Sharingan's great sun spirit already at his disposal, once Sasuke awakened the Rinnegan, he would be Izanami's first six-path level subordinate. Difficult tasks would be passed to this capable hand. Instead of heading straight to Orochimaru, Sasuke went to the Konoha graveyard. He carried another wood release box. Sasuke? Before he reached the Uchiha family plots, a familiar voice called his name. He turned and saw Kakashi Hatake approaching. Kakashi, what are you doing here? Sasuke asked, blunt as ever. I came to visit a friend, Kakashi replied, not bothered by his student's tone. His visible eye flicked to the box in Sasuke's hands, narrowing. What's in that box? A head. Sasuke didn't bother to hide it. A traitor's head. I'm taking it to offer to my clansmen. Kakashi's surprise was immediate. Besides Itachi and you, there are survivors of the Uchiha? Of course, Kakashi would react like that. He'd been among the Anbu who had cleaned up the Uchiha massacre, recording names and matching them to the clan register. All but two names had been crossed out, Itachi and Sasuke. To hear that others survived, Kakashi was stunned. Sasuke only sneered. This one faked his death to escape, and he participated in the massacre. He wasn't the only one who destroyed the clan. Kakashi's mind raced. Over the years, he'd finally mastered his left eye's power and awakened his own Mangekyo. Its ocular technique, Izanagi, was powerful, but not dimensional. Itachi hadn't even used Susanoo that night. Relying on only an ocular skill, Itachi couldn't have wiped out a clan teeming with experts in a single night. There had to be higher-ups involved. Sasuke's words confirmed the suspicion. Kakashi's concern deepened. If Sasuke already suspected official involvement, why was he so calm? Given his temperament, he should have gone to extremes. Did it have something to do with the Hokage? He dared not ask, so he changed tack. What's his name? Sasuke said flatly, Uchiha Obito. Kakashi's knees nearly buckled. He'd known Obito as a teammate, one of the generation whose name was carved on the memorial stone for heroism. Obito. How? He whispered. That can't be right. Is it a coincidence of names? It wasn't. Kakashi knew the clan register. Among recent generations, there had been only one Obito. He had been presumed dead after the Kanabi Bridge battle, becoming a Konoha hero honored on the stone. The Uchiha had not used the name casually afterward out of respect. If Obito was really alive, why had he not returned? What had turned him from that boy into someone who could slaughter his own clan alongside Itachi? Or was this an impersonation, a puppet made to look like Obito? Questions shoved at Kakashi from every direction. He spun to follow Sasuke, driven to verify his trembling suspicion. Sasuke ignored him. At the Uchiha section of the cemetery, he stopped before Fugaku Uchiha's stone, set the wooden box down, and wove wood-released chakra into it. The box opened itself. Inside lay a half-split, crudely reassembled head, its expression frozen and hideous. Kakashi felt the air constrict. Years could change a face, but the permanent slash across the left side of the face, the scar from the fallen boulder, had not healed, no matter the medical miracles. This was the Obito Kakashi remembered, the boy who had been buried beneath rock and never found. So he didn't die, Kakashi said hoarsely. His voice shook with a mix of relief and dread. Sasuke, where did you find him? Sasuke, who had been murmuring apologies and promises to his dead ancestors in his head, frowned and glanced at Kakashi. He paused at Kakashi's shaken features, the sweat, the trembling eyes, and looked at the head on the ground. You know him? Kakashi nodded, voice thin. Many from our generation do. Obito was a disciple of the fourth Hokage, like me. He supposedly died at Kanabi Bridge and is listed among Konoha's heroes. A Konoha hero, Sasuke scoffed, a cold laugh escaping him. Would they dig him up if they knew the Nine Tails attack that killed the fourth Hokage was caused by this hero? Kakashi stared, disbelief plain on his face. Obito caused the Nine Tails? How old was he then? Why would he harm our sensei? If you don't believe me, ask him yourself. Without explaining, Sasuke activated his Mangekyo Sharingan. He lifted his hand and formed a small black hole in midair. It expanded rapidly. Its terrifying gravity reached only for him, Kakashi, and the head on the ground, pulling them off their feet. They twisted, bodies and the head sucked into the hole. Underground, Orochimaru and Yakushi Kabuto, who had been packing and waiting under Izanami's protection, tensed. A fist-sized black hole opened before them. This is space-time ninjutsu, Orochimaru said, lips curling with recognition. Is it Izanami? Impossible. Izanami doesn't use this kind of space-time jutsu. Orochimaru shook his head. He wasn't afraid Izana, no matter the name, had always watched over him while he remained useful. It would not allow him to die carelessly. Still, both Orochimaru and Kabuto went rigid as two familiar figures tumbled out of the rift. Sasuke-kun? And Kakashi? Orochimaru! Kakashi's body went taut when he saw the pale, snake-like figure standing before them. Sasuke pointed at the head that had come through with them and said to Orochimaru, Orochimaru, help me use Edo Tensei on him. Orochimaru's eyes flicked to Sasuke's activated eyes, then to the slowly collapsing black hole. A thin, pleased smile showed. What powerful ocular jutsu, Sasuke-kun. It reminds me of Obito's eyes. You know Obito too? Both Sasuke and Kakashi asked, stunned. Of course. Orochimaru's grin turned darker. Kabuto and I nearly died at the hands of him and the leader of Akatsuki back then. His eye technique let him become intangible, teleporting through space-time, ignoring terrain and barriers. If not for Izanami's rescue, I'd have been finished long ago. Sasuke considered that and then looked at the split head. Orochimaru's curiosity sharpened. You want me to Edo Tensei this man? Who is he? Uchiha Obito, Sasuke said, cold. Orochimaru's interest deepened. So this is what was under the mask. If that's truly Obito, meeting you was not in vain. Kakashi stood there, dazed, as though a world had tilted. Everyone else seemed to know Obito, knew him in ways Kakashi hadn't imagined, and he was the only one who hadn't. For a moment he felt unmoored. Had he really been a Konoha ninja all these years? Chapter 187, Impure World Reincarnation Fails, Konoha's Great Purge. Impure World Reincarnation. In the same hall as before, Yakushi Kabuto had found another prisoner. Orochimaru performed the Impure World Reincarnation with practiced motions. Tadpole-shaped seals spread out and crawled over the bound, gagged captive. The man's eyes were wide with terror. Muffled sounds escaped around the gag. A cloud of white dust rose, lifting the prisoner's body and wrapping him until he looked like a pale mummy. But the summoned form did not solidify the way Hiruzen Sarutobi and Danzo Shimura had. Their souls had been drawn from the Pure Land, their outlines filling in color and life. This mummy only trembled violently, then crumbled. The white dust scattered to the floor. The figure collapsed into a heap and did not reform. Orochimaru and Uchiha Sasuke stared. Sasuke frowned. What's going on? He asked. Orochimaru did not answer at once. He frowned, then turned to Sasuke. Are you sure you killed Uchiha Obito? What do you mean? Sasuke shot back. The Impure World Reincarnation cannot fail unless something is preventing the Pure Land Gate from being reached, Orochimaru said coolly. Even God's souls can be summoned by it. A mere Uchiha like Obito shouldn't be able to resist that at all. He listed possibilities. Either he's not truly dead and his soul has not reached the Pure Land, or this head isn't Obito's, so there's no proper medium, or... He paused and narrowed his eyes. Someone else who also knows the Impure World Reincarnation has already summoned Obito's soul. Satoru Nagato? Sasuke murmured, thinking of the leader of Akatsuki. The final battle between Human Puppet Legion and the Reanimation Army had shaken the world. Everyone knew there were only a few in this age who could perform Edo Tensei. Sasuke, unaware that Uchiha Madara also knew the jutsu, suspected Nagato had already brought Obito back. Sasuke knew better than most how dead Obito had seemed. He'd even used Izanagi, and his soul had been controlled by spirit transformation. He should be gone. To think someone had revived him made Sasuke visibly displeased. Without another word, Sasuke formed a black sphere and stepped into it. Kakashi, regaining his wits, followed. Watching the hole close, Kabuto snorted. What an arrogant one. The Uchiha are all like that, Orochimaru replied with a sharp laugh. Proud and obsessed with strength. They look down on the weak and worship the strong. Once their Sharingan awakens, that attitude only gets worse. They are blunt and straightforward. What you see on their faces is what they think. Dealing with such people is both frustrating and refreshingly simple. As long as Izayoi-kun is here, Sasuke will be Konoha's strongest enforcer, a reliable partner. Kabuto brightened. Begin the packing, Kabuto. Yes, Lord Orochimaru. Uchiha Obito blinked awake as if from a dream. He'd been drifting through a childhood vision when something shook him back to consciousness. He opened his eyes and was standing in the mountainous region of the Land of Rivers, appearing from within the Kamui dimension. Facing him was not the cold, calculating Sasuke, but Uchiha Madara, who looked openly displeased. I've been revived? Obito asked, still dazed. Madara's expression was unrepentant. Don't flatter yourself. I brought you back with my Edo Tensei. Edo Tensei? Obito looked at his hands, replaying his final moments against Sasuke. So I really died at Sasuke's hand? Dying at the hands of someone 2 generations younger than you is shameful, Madara reprimanded. Even Itachi, who had no Hashirama grafts, outranks you. You with your supposed unlimited ocular power couldn't hold your own. You thought Kamui was invincible. You met an ability like Kamui that can constrain even Kamui itself, and you couldn't last until I returned. Obito ignored the scolding and asked, Is this my body or a white Zetsu clone? A white Zetsu clone. Your corpse is gone, Madara said. If the curse mark hadn't preserved some of your flesh and blood, I might not have been able to reincarnate you at all. Obito was silent a moment, then murmured, Thank you. Madara raised an eyebrow in surprise. Then, apparently struck by a thought, he said, It seems you met someone in the Pure Land. Obito did not answer. Madara was right. When his soul drifted in the Pure Land, he had seen Rin. He had begged that his soul not be destroyed because he still wanted to see her, but at the same time he'd been terrified of meeting her, and seeking forgiveness, he feared she'd deny. As with Kamui, an escape from the world, Obito remained an escapist at heart. Now that you're back, we continue, Madara said, outlining his grand plan. Edo Tensei gives you boundless chakra and ocular power. You no longer need my Yang release to probe dimensions. Once Ishiki is dealt with and I become Ten Tails Jinchuriki, I'll revive everyone you cared for at once. At the mention of revival, the black eyes Edo Tensei gave Obito flickered. A hole opened, and the two vanished into the mountains, continuing their hunt for the hidden dimensions beyond the real world. For Izanami and Madara, this was only a brief diversion. From their vantage point, the Shinobi world was a playground. The struggles of the 5 great nations and the Kage were child's play. Madara could have seized rule outright, but he wanted a permanent peace, hence his obsession with grander plans. Even after the infinite Tsukuyomi had shattered part of his dream, he still intended to become Ten Tails Jinchuriki to continue his experiments in bringing order. To Madara, everyone outside the Otsutsuki clan was a mere tool. Izanami, meanwhile, played along. The Six-Path Sage had not explained everything to Madara, so Izanami used him to track Ishiki's whereabouts. Beyond the shrinking Ishiki, only the Six-Path Sage made Izanami uneasy. So while Sasuke went about his business, Izanami stayed busy. He transplanted Obito's right eye onto Danzo's remaining implanted eyes so Danzo could complete his dual Kamui ability. He had a wood clone assume Otsutsuki Toneri's shape and used the Ninetales yin energy as a power source while Danzo hunted dimensional signatures. Izanami himself mostly stayed home cultivating a sage body. After his talent ascended to transcendent talent, Rainbow, Izanami finally grasped how vital an upper limit of ability could be. When he'd been Six Paths talent, Red, even with complete yin-yang release and chakra beads, transforming cells to hold physical, spiritual, and natural energy progressed painfully slowly. There are 130 trillion cells. Even transforming 1 trillion a day would take 130 days, impossible by ordinary means. Now, however, the process felt like operating an excavator instead of digging by hand. Cell transformations flew by. The 3rd official round of the Chunin exams in August gave Izanami's main body a rare break. Leaders from the villages had come to Konoha at Nagato's invitation, an event no less than a 5 Kage summit. The old guard, led by Onoki, refused to attend. Pride and stubbornness kept them away. In their place, Kuretsuchi, Darui, and Gara came. Mei Terumi joined them, all present yet restrained, careful not to offend either Izanami or Nagato. Nagato and Izanami sat at the center, and no one dared cause trouble. Any protest might have been crushed by Konoha's forces and Nagato's reanimated army. At the start of the third match, Sasuke, acting as Izanami's personal guard, asked Nagato quietly, "Did you reanimate Obito?" Nagato smiled slightly. "No, I'm not involved in that. My Edo Tensei army has been handed to Uchiha Madara. He knows impure world reincarnation as well." He added, "By the way, Uchiha Itachi left Akatsuki. When he visited me, half his hair had turned white and his aura was weak." Sasuke remained expressionless. "Let's watch the match," Izanami said with a small smile. With such powerful figures present, no one dared interfere. The third official match proceeded smoothly. The winner was clear, Hyuga Hanabi. Feeding daily on Izanami's chakra and absorbing life energy from the Grelel stone, Hanabi's reserves and strength had surpassed Hinata's at the same age, and even edged past Hinata, who had graduated 2 years earlier. Under Izanami's tutelage, Hanabi had learned to blend softness and force. Her touches hid devastating chakra bursts. Though she had not yet mastered the one-hit gentle-step twin lion fists, every move was lethal. Izanami had taught her the super hurricane serial spheres as well, which she had mastered. Ajisai, who had reached the finals with her, was defeated in a few rounds. Hanabi's name spread through Konoha and across the shinobi world. Konoha had produced another prodigy, graduating early and promoted to Chunin in the same year, and more importantly, she was the 6th Hokage's only disciple. All villages quietly agreed she was not to be trifled with. After the exams, the Kage candidates left the same day. Only Nagato stayed behind to reunite with Jiraiya, and Izanami joined them. Days later, shocking news swept Konoha and quickly reached the entire ninja world. Izanami had pardoned Orochimaru, revoked his S-rank rogue designation, and recalled him to Konoha to head the scientific technology department. To recall the architect of the Konoha Crush and the man blamed for killing the 3rd Hokage and place him back in government would have outraged the public if Izanami had not prepared a scapegoat. He produced Danzo Shimura in a new light, throwing Orochimaru's supposed crimes onto Danzo's shoulders. According to Izanami's account, it was Danzo who forced Orochimaru to continue the wood release experiments, who planted cursed seals on root operatives, who ordered the kidnapping of children for experiments. When Anbu had unearthed the truth, Danzo had turned the blame on Orochimaru and used blackmail, Orochimaru's disciple Anko Mitarashi, and the special arm made from Hashirama cells and Sharingan as leverage. Danzo's presence, his manipulations, and his role in the 3rd Hokage's death were painted as a lifetime of covert sins. Orochimaru, furious, had once allied with a disguised Otsutsuki Toneri in a bid for revenge against Danzo and to force an explanation from Hiruzen. Hiruzen, driven by guilt and friendship, had sealed himself with a release seal to die with Orochimaru, or so the new narrative claimed. Orochimaru's real motives and any redeeming acts were kept classified. To strengthen the case, council elders Homura Mitokado and Utane Koharu, both of whom had cursed seals recorded in their files, publicly supported Orochimaru, lending credibility. Public fury redirected at the deceased Danzo Shimura. The list of missing children surfaced. Families gathered at the Hokage building to grieve. Sasuke, now acting as Anbu commander, was ordered to investigate the Shimura household. A purge swept Konoha, cheered by noble clans and ordinary villagers alike. Evidence, some genuine, some manufactured, linked Danzo to Root's darkest deeds, coercing research, planting curses, even the Nine Tails incident and the night of the Uchiha massacre. Danzo's name was struck from the memorial stone. His title as Konoha hero was revoked. People dug up his empty grave and smashed his tombstone. The Shimura clan became the target of public scorn. Sasuke expelled them from Konoha Central Street. Several elders were arrested by Sasuke's Anbu and jailed in private cells, tortured until confessions or new accusations emerged. Villagers applauded every revelation. The major shinobi families breathed easier. Who said the 6th Hokage was not a masterful politician? He had managed to rehabilitate Orochimaru and turn a long-dead man into a pariah. The Sarutobi, Mitokado, and Utatane families trembled, worried the purge might spread to them. Even Kurenai Yuhi came forward to support the effort, playing the comforting teacher-disciple card. The purge continued until the end of August and then slowly wound down. Orochimaru and Yakushi Kabuto returned to Konoha, dazed by the whirlwind their reintegration had unleashed. Chapter 188, 2 years later, the Samsara Eye. Izanami-kun, it's time to get up. Wake up. Izanami-kun, you're a big boy now. You can't sleep in. Izanami-kun, it's the day you handle your monthly duties. Wake up. Half asleep, Izanami felt his body gently rocking and heard the faint voices of 3 different girls. For a moment, he assumed Hinata, Shion, and Hanabi were waking him and slowly opened his eyes. A leaning figure filled his blurred vision, a little girl with a chubby, cute face and beautifully pale eyes. As his sight cleared, the child transformed into a long-haired maiden, waist-length hair falling around a refined, pretty face. In less than 2 seconds, the maiden had become a tall woman. Her face had lost all childishness, and her air shifted from newcomer innocence to the composed, confident bearing of an older sister who had seen much. Yet the woman still wore an indulgent, faintly helpless smile. Maturity and purity, severity and tenderness blended. The sight made anyone watching want to tear apart the man she doted on. "Hinata, stop shaking. You're making my head spin," Izanami said with a teasing smile. Hinata glanced down at the slight sway of the sizable chest that had been moving as she leaned over him. No longer the blushing girl from the academy or graduation, she straightened, rolled her eyes, and drooped a coquettish smile. "Hurry and get up and wash. I'll make breakfast." She turned and left. Izanami sat up, still seeing faint after-images, 2 figures trailing after Hinata, mirroring her movements. One of them was smaller than the other. He blinked, shook his head, and muttered, "These jutsu side effects are really something." He went to the bathroom, brushed his teeth, and appraised himself in the mirror. The glass, replaced over time with a mirror formed of chakra beads, reflected a taller, straighter man. The wood clone jutsu hadn't fully dispelled, so his black hair remained cropped short across his ears and forehead. His blue eyes were clear and bright, like cloudless sky or deep ocean with no redness or discoloration. His face had lost youthful softness, fair skin, defined features, sharp lines. At 1.88 meters, he wore an open white pajama top that revealed a solid, fair chest and a set of 8 abs. After washing up, Izanami summoned his personal panel. Host. Izanami talent entries: Transcendence Aptitude, color, Otsutsuki Bloodline, color, Bloodline Net, Reincarnation, Reincarnation Eye, color, Sage Body, Soaring, points, 8, 9, and 6, 7, 7, 10. Seeing the 5 entries and their special effects calmed him. He closed the panel and paused at a wall calendar, drawing a red cross on the 24th. Today was August 25th, Konoha year 64. 2 years had passed since Izanami became the 6th Hokage. During those 2 years, the ninja world had been unusually peaceful. The chaotic years between Konoha year 60 and 62, when earth-shaking events happened again and again, had not returned. Uchiha Madara had seemed to vanish. Spies and travelers who searched the hidden rain hadn't found Shinobi Asura in 2 years. Otsutsuki Toneri had apparently stopped trying to reclaim the Outer Path demonic statue. Neither his main body nor his human puppet legion had appeared in the ninja world in that time. Nagato and Izanami mostly remained within their own territories, managing their villages. Under the restraint of the 5 Kage and the 2 other super-level combatants, great and small villages dared not openly clash. When disputes erupted, assassinations were the limit. No one declared open war out of fear of collective reprisal. Mission requests across the nations had plummeted, but military budgets stayed high. The 5 great nations signed alliances and trade boomed. Daimyo earned money and spent it. Even the usually stingy Wind Daimyo loosened the purse strings in the past 2 years. But that generosity was only surface deep. The Daimyo used funds to let their ninja forces recover, rebuild, and train. Their real intent was to prepare for an inevitable war. No one believed the superpowers would truly coexist peacefully. They had to be playing some hidden game, and a major battle could erupt any moment. Izanami saw all their preparations, and he didn't discourage them. No matter how many troops amassed, they were ants before the dimension-erasing strike of a truth-seeking ball. He stepped into the living room. The villa smelled of cooking. Hinata had tied her black hair into a wife bun and was frying eggs and making sandwiches. Izanami didn't sit down immediately. He leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, and watched her with a smile. 2 years had changed her. In Konoha year 60, she had already resembled her Shippuden self. By year 61, her figure had become even more pronounced. Now, in year 64, the original Shippuden time frame, Hinata no longer matched that earlier image. She had reached her most beautiful age, like her portrayal in the last Naruto the movie at 19, and was, in Izanami's eyes, even more stunning. Her beauty extended beyond face to figure and presence. The 19-year-old Hinata from Canon had stood 1.63 meters. This Hinata was already Hanabi's height in Boruto. Her curves made even Kurenai feel inferior. Izanami often sighed. As expected, the Grell stone's world-shattering quirks were formidable. Hinata's growth wasn't only the stone's doing. Izanami had helped. Chakra, after all, stems from physical and spiritual energy across roughly 130 trillion cells. Hinata's chakra reserves were now dozens of times greater than in the original story, surpassing even Karin, a descendant of the Uzumaki Whirlpool line. Hinata, who had advanced somewhat less than Izanami, was quietly one of the most underestimated figures in the ninja world. She had mastered Kamui. Like Kakashi inheriting Obito's Sharingan, she could use powers that outclassed opponents. Her gentle step twin lion fists and chakra scalpel could exploit space-time and produce intangibility that ignored attacks, techniques that served as the ultimate spear and shield. Unfortunately, after teammates split and Hinata became the Hokage's secretary, she seldom acted publicly. Few people knew her true power. Most saw her only as the Hokage's girlfriend, the future Hokage's wife, the Hyuga main family's eldest daughter who changed her clan's fate, and Hanabi's older sister. Noticing his gaze, Hinata turned and smiled softly. "Izanami-kun, breakfast is ready. Please sit at the table and I'll bring the milk." "All right." He smiled and took the head of the table. Hinata set the food down, untied her apron, and said, "Karin and Shion already left for work. I'm heading to the Hokage's office to help now. After you eat, put the dishes in the kitchen. I'll wash them when I get back. Don't dawdle." Before she could change, Izanami caught her small hand and pulled her into his arms. With Hinata sitting on his lap, he wrapped his arms around her slender waist, rested his chin on her ample chest, and looked up. "It's okay to go in late. At worst, I'll send a shadow clone or a wood clone to help. Ninjutsu exists to save us time and make life easier. But we haven't been busy for a long time." Hinata mimicked his usual reprimands, pinching his cheek with a laugh. "Only working 1 day a month and sending wood clones to manage subordinates. Only you, the 6th Hokage, could get away with that. I have important duties." He buried his head in her embrace. "As Hokage, I bear responsibility for protecting the world." "We know. Thank you for your hard work, Izanami-kun." Hinata stroked his hair. After a brief facial, Izanami looked up, pouting. "You're always so considerate. Now give me a kiss." "Why do you get more childish as you grow older?" Hinata laughed. "You were more mature when you were little, and now you act like a kid. Are you doing everything in reverse?" Despite her scolding, Hinata wrapped her arms around his neck and leaned down. The shy, blushing girl, the one whose eyes once swirled at embarrassment, seemed gone. Minutes later, she pursed her lips. "Hurry up and eat. I have to get to work." Izanami tightened the hug and leaned close to her ear. "It's rare they're both out. Tonight, I want to." A long, hidden blush rose on Hinata's cheeks at his words. She trembled between shyness and mischief. "But Karin and Shion are waiting. If I'm too late, they'll notice. How about tonight?" "They already know about us. What's there to hide?" he pleaded. "Hinata, please. I can never get anything done with you." Hinata sighed, exasperated but unable to protest much. She rolled her eyes at him and began undoing her hair. "Open the barrier first," she whispered. "Don't undo it." Izanami teased. "I just like this hairstyle." Hinata said nothing, only rolled her eyes with a charming look, then slid down like a snake and disappeared beneath the table. Izanami ate her carefully prepared breakfast with reverence, as if it were dragon liver and phoenix marrow. Despite his pure Otsutsuki blood, his appetite was comically small. It took nearly an hour to finish 2 fried eggs and a sandwich. He picked up the milk and choked slightly, coughing into the dining room as he drank. In the end, Izanami did not go to the Hokage's office in person to handle matters. He was, as usual, very busy. He sent a wood clone with Hinata to the office, and then something shifted. Gold ripples appeared in his eyes. The blue of his pupils and the white of his sclera vanished and were replaced by golden sclera shot through with concentric ripples. His irises were no longer dark coronas with white light. They turned golden, streaked with light, forming a floral pattern within the pupils. These eyes were the most dramatic change Izanami had undergone in 2 years. There was no need to fuse the bloodline limit, Rinnegan, entry, or invoke some fourth awakening of the reincarnation eye. Transcendence aptitude color had elevated his Otsutsuki bloodline color to a higher level. The second affiliated entry after soaring, red, was not a karma seal or a mere divine art, it was the Rinnegan. With his Otsutsuki bloodline upgraded to a color entry and his 6 paths talent advanced to transcendence aptitude, color, the Rinnegan manifested directly. It wasn't the purple Rinnegan, nor was it a Rinnegan and reincarnation eye that required switching forms to use their powers. Like Sasuke's 6 Tomoe Rinnegan, it fused the reincarnation eye and Rinnegan into one. Its label was no longer Bloodline Limit, but Bloodline Net, Reincarnation Eye, a name that surpassed both Bloodline Limit and Bloodline Elimination. The power in those eyes was staggering. Even so, the Bloodline Net, Reincarnation Eye, color, ranked below the Otsutsuki bloodline, color, and even the Transcendence aptitude color that governed it. When Izanami activated the Reincarnation eye, his body rose into the air. Black cracks tore open the space before him and formed a door like a black hole. He flew through and, as the portal closed, time seemed to reverse. The doorway sealed as if nothing had happened, and space snapped back into place. The technique was Yomatsu Hirasaka. Though it's a space-time ninjutsu, it belonged to the bloodline net. Yet Yomatsu Hirasaka didn't appear in his ability list by name. That was because it wasn't an independent technique of soaring, color. It was one of the abilities granted by the Reincarnation eye. Chapter 189, Heavenly Constant Stand, Izanami's exclusive dojutsu. A black portal opened in a snow-choked icy void. Izanami stepped out and immediately froze solid, his body encased in a massive block of blue ice. In less than a second, the ice cracked and shattered. He took in the endless white expanse and frowned. The air here was frigid, far colder than the land of iron. Could this be one of Kaguya Otsutsuki's Tenchi no Minaka dimensions? Having awakened the reincarnation eye, Izanami no longer needed Danzo Shimura's puppet to probe other dimensions. He could open spatio-temporal portals far more convenient and powerful than Kamui or the Great Sun Spirit. Entering the Yomatsu Hirasaka tunnel let him perceive other realms directly. He had underestimated this world. The number of dimensions was staggering. They were like curved doors that only spatio-temporal power could open. Most led to dark, barren spaces. Lively, element-rich dimensions were rare. Some powerful realms were linked to the real world. Ryuchi Cave, Mount Miyoboku, and Shikotsu Forest among them. Izanami had awakened the Reincarnation Eye earlier that year and learned to use Yomatsu Hirasaka the same day. In the past 6 months, he had visited many dimensions and even suffered a major setback once. He had wandered into a supergravity realm and been pinned to the ground by its crushing force. It took him a long time just to adapt enough to stand and walk. Even with 6 paths level power, that experience humbled him. His inflated ego shrank. The Reincarnation Eye was potent, but it still ranked behind the Otsutsuki bloodline, color, on his ability list. He had a long way to go. Aside from the supergravity realm, this icy space was the second dimension to catch him off guard. He suspected it might be one of Kaguya's own dimensions, and soon found the answer. Without forming a single hand seal, Izanami slipped into 6-path Sage mode and released his unique sensing to sweep for life. The dimension was lifeless. He was about to leave when his eyes narrowed. A huge golden clock materialized in his vision. Its hour, minute, and second hands spun, not clockwise, but counterclockwise. Circular images streamed from the clock, growing and passing through him. The snowy landscape around him shifted with each image. Heavy snow, then no snow, then heavy snow again in a relentless cycle. At first, the hands moved at a normal pace. Within 10 seconds, they became afterimages, too fast for the eye to follow. The images multiplied, and the scene changed wildly. After an unknown span, long enough that even Izanami felt a slight strain in his eyes, one image passed through him, and three figures appeared in the icy field. Izanami stopped using his dojutsu and blinked as three people stood before him, a woman and two men, all in white robes, horns on their heads, with pale white and purple ripple-patterned eyes. Kaguya Otsutsuki and her sons, Hagoromo and Hamura. They were locked in a brutal battle. The brothers pressed their mother, and the heavens and earth themselves seemed to fracture under their blows. A casual strike from Kaguya was a sage art fist that shook heaven and earth. 2 years ago, such a strike would likely have forced Izanami to respond with his golden wheel reincarnation explosion. Yet Hagoromo transformed his sage art staff into a strange black longsword and with a single blow shattered a Bloodline limit expansion level technique, the 80 Gods Vacant Attack. Divine Sword of the Heavens, Amino no Hoko, Izanami murmured. Is the principle of this divine tool the same as the sage art staffs? Watching, he realized Hagoromo's strike contained a very special force, at least on par with a Bloodline expansion, or he could never have broken the 80 Gods Vacant Attack so effortlessly. In the original tales, Ame no Hoko was a sword of the heart that imbues the user's will into the blade. The stronger the will, the greater the sword's power. With a will strong enough, it could reshape creation. In the original final battle, Obito, despite temporarily suppressing the Ten Tails' will, lost to Naruto and Sasuke because his own will was not absolute. Ame no Nuhoko broke because his resolve faltered. Kaguya and her sons fought in that snowy realm for about half an hour. Realizing she couldn't use ice and snow to counter them, Kaguya invoked Tenchi no Minaka, and the three vanished. The golden clock stopped turning back time and slowly faded. The ravaged ground immediately returned to its original state, as if the battle had been only an illusion. In fact, it had been real, but thousands of years in the past. Izanami had just watched the ancestor of chakra and the progenitor of ninja clash a millennium ago. This was one of the Reincarnation Eye's exclusive dojutsu, Heavenly Constant Stand. Dojutsu names in this world often reference gods, divine weapons, or collective deities, Kamui, Izanagi, and so on. Among those ancient gods is Amino Tokotachi, the eternal god and god of time. Though names don't always align perfectly with abilities, Izanami had indeed gained a sliver of temporal power. The lie he once told Madara, that his eyes could see beyond time, had become true. His eyes could now perceive the past. His left eye could see the past of scenes and of living beings. Scene-span vision could reach terrifyingly far back while costing minimal dojutsu energy. He'd only felt mild fatigue after watching a 1,000-year-old battle. For living beings, he could at most see moments near their birth. This consumed far more energy, but still negligible for him. Heavenly Constant Stand had been awakened only recently. He'd used it so often that he joked he'd developed Reincarnation Eye myopia, constantly seeing past visions of Hinata and the others. The left eye saw the past. The right eye was meant to see the future. But unlike the ease of viewing the past, seeing the future demanded tens to hundreds of times more ocular energy. The past is written, the future is blank and must be conceived. The butterfly effect meant any small action could alter what comes next. For now, Izanami could only reliably see about 5 minutes ahead. Then the right eye would enter a cooldown, much like Kamui. If he avoided continuous 5-minute peaks, he could still use the ability intermittently, as Kamui users do. After mastering this new power, Izanami used Yomatsu Hirasaka to explore more dimensions and revisit ones he'd already seen. He'd probe each realm with 6-path sensing, then use his Eye of the Past to check for traces of Ishiki Otsutsuki. So far, Ishiki had left no mark in any of these dimensions. Perhaps his domain lay within a black eye, of a dimension Izanami hadn't yet found. The more he learned, the more wary he became of Ishiki. This superior of Kaguya, though weaker than her, had once nearly turned the tide in Boruto. He had gone undiscovered by Kaguya and her sons for 1,000 years. Whatever trump cards he possessed were dangerous. Blindly searching is useless, Izanami muttered. I need a bait or a trap. Still, he continued to travel, not only to search for Ishiki, but to deepen his mastery of Yomotsu Hirasaka and space-time. He could now open portals with ease and even connect dimensions to the real world, like the three great sage regions, letting others enter if they found the doorway. One such door led from his underground base to a chosen dimension that he'd transformed, using chakra beads, into a paradise and training ground. It had become a secret refuge for him and the others. His present talent in space-time could only be described as supremacy. By dinner time, Izanami returned through the portal. No sooner had his feet hit the floor than a graceful figure leapt onto him and clung to his chest as usual. "Oni-chan, welcome home," Hanabi's voice chimed. Izanami laughed, looking down at the Byakugan girl. "You've grown up, yet you're still childish." "Heh? Hanabi will always be a little sister to Oni-chan," she said with a smile. "You promised. No matter how old I get, I can still ask for a piggyback." "Did I say that?" Izanami feigned innocence. "I'll bite you," Hanabi teased, baring small fangs. "All right, I said it." Izanami set her down and patted her head. Unknowingly, that little mochi-loving kid has become a capable ninja. "It's all thanks to Oni-chan's teaching," Hanabi said, looping her arm through his proudly. "As the 6th Hokage's only disciple, Hanabi hasn't disgraced you, right?" "You haven't just done me proud. You've broken records across the 5 great shinobi countries," Izanami laughed. "Kakashi became an all-around jonin at 12 during the Third Great War, but you became an all-around jonin at 11 in peacetime, an impossible miracle." Hanabi had indeed risen to prominence. Unlike Hinata's gentle low profile, Hanabi's competitive ambitious nature, plus the prestige of being the Hokage's disciple, had made her a public star. She completed missions solo, excelled in taijutsu, inherited Izanami's super hurricane serial spheres, mastered the Whirlpool clan's sealing techniques and the 5th Hokage's medical ninjutsu, and possessed terrifying chakra reserves. With her accelerated maturation from the Grillel Stone and the Otsutsuki bloodline, color, she now stood about 1.6 meters tall, close to Hinata during Shippuden, and only 10 centimeters shorter than her Boruto counterpart. Her features had matured into the beauty many envied, and she'd become the object of countless admirers. In the public eye, Hinata was now often referred to as Hyuga Hanabi's older sister. "Hanabi's back," she chirped again, beaming. "Perfect timing. Wash up and eat." Izanami led her toward the dining room, where Hinata, Shion, and Karin were busy serving dishes. 2 years had changed them too. Shion, once a pirated version of Hinata, had, despite only receiving Izanami's enhancements recently, grown to 1.65 meters. Dressed in White House clothes, her proud curves rivaled Hinata's. Karin had reached 1.66 meters and carried herself with a quiet gentleness reminiscent of Shizune. Both had matured in body and manner. Karin's granary had at last developed, less than Hinata and Shion, but comparable to Ino, and notably more than Hanabi's. "Sister Shion, Sister Karin, I'll help," Hanabi said as she entered the kitchen with them. The 4 girls chatted and laughed as they worked, and Izanami's face softened. Kinship, love, and friendship, without them, life felt incomplete, even an endless life. He wanted to be happy forever with these 4. He wanted to break the limitations of lifespan. This world held a possible solution, the method of refining an elixir. He was determined to obtain it. At that thought, his gaze shifted. A small smile played across his lips. The 4 girls paused mid-task, set down their utensils, and turned to the same direction, their expressions suddenly full of astonishment. Chapter 190, The Three Tails Revives, prelude to the final chapter. Such powerful chakra. What is that chakra? It's a little like when Oni-chan's chakra erupted back then, but much weaker. Hinata and the 3 other girls murmured in surprise. They all turned to Izanami, who smiled without hiding anything. "The Three Tails has revived," she said. "If you can feel that, your sensory abilities have reached the top tier." The tailed beasts were formed when the 10 tails chakra split into 9, and the 10 tails itself came from the God Tree, which drew life energy from the planet. Because of that bond to the world, the 9-tailed beasts will revive somewhere in the ninja world as long as the planet lives. When they do, the sudden gathering and eruption of chakra can be detected by powerful sensors. "So it's a tailed beast reviving. No wonder that chakra was so huge," one of the girls realized. Izanami nodded. "Go have dinner first. I still have things to take care of." She vanished the instant she finished speaking. The Hokage's office was lit unusually late that night. Working at this hour, not like you, Sasuke teased when he, too, materialized. No choice, Izanami replied. You felt that chakra, right? Sasuke's face turned serious. It's similar to what you experienced back then, but nowhere near that level. That movement of chakra was the sign of a tailed beast reviving. Izanami's tone grew tight. All 9 tailed beasts are alive now. If nothing unexpected happens, Uchiha Madara and the Akatsuki will make their move. Bring Naruto here and guard him with everything you have. Madara could try to seize him at any moment. Sasuke's expression hardened. Understood. Worried Madara might act first, Sasuke clapped his hands, entered Sage Mode, opened a small space and stepped through it. In a dark, otherworldly dimension, Madara and Obito were inspecting an unfamiliar space when Madara's lips curved. Has it finally revived? I've been waiting. Obito, using Kamui to search across dimensions, paused. The 3 tails? Yes. Madara's smile was thin. Put the dimensional search aside. Once I become the 10 tails Jinchuriki, the board will be tilted in my favor. Obito's voice was cold. As an Edo Tensei body, he felt no hunger or fatigue and had endless chakra and ocular power. In the past 2 years, he'd used Kamui to open over 200 dimensions for Madara, despite his Kamui being far inferior to some other space-time techniques. None of those dimensions contained the person Madara sought, and Obito had sometimes suspected he'd been strung along. But Madara had truly searched with him for years, and Obito eventually accepted his leader's purpose. The 10 tails, the sage of 6 paths, even the progenitor of chakra, were not the oldest secrets. Older mysteries still lurked. As an undead soldier, Obito no longer coveted becoming Jinchuriki himself. He wanted Madara to succeed. If Madara prevailed, he might finally keep his promise to bring back Obito's loved ones. He was also curious how Madara planned to bypass Otsutsuki Toneri and Izanami to gather the 9-tailed beasts. Using Kamui, Obito brought Madara back to the real world's hidden rain village. As soon as they emerged, Madara located Nagato. Did you feel that chakra? He asked, though he already knew the answer. Nagato nodded. A disturbance like that is hard to miss. What's next? Madara drew Nagato into a Rinnegan Genjutsu and laid out his plan. We must collect the 9-tailed beasts as quickly as possible to avoid accidents. I will provide the reanimated army. You will lead the Akatsuki members to carry out the mission. Nagato listened. Madara continued. I'll go to the moon and to Konoha to hold 2 targets in place. Nagato analyzed calmly. With Obito and Tobi assisting, unless Otsutsuki Toneri and Izanami personally intervene, even Toneri's puppet army or Danzo wouldn't stop us. But if you want to be the 10 tails Jinchuriki, you must get all 9 beasts. Do you have confidence capturing the 9 tails from Izanami? Don't forget the Jinchuriki's protector is not simple. Her lover has awakened space-time abilities like Obito's, and she's one of the most underestimated fighters in the ninja world. Madara smiled. I have a backup plan. The 9 tails won't be a problem. Good, Nagato agreed. If possible, try to keep casualties low. We must act quickly to minimize losses, Madara said. They broke the genjutsu and began. Madara instantly activated 6-path Sage Mode, formed a massive wood clone, and split his forces. His main body flew to the moon. The clone headed for Konoha. He wasn't underestimating Izanami. Rather, Izanami's position as 6th Hokage made a direct fight unlikely. Toneri on the moon, however, even at his peak, would be difficult to defeat. Madara only needed to keep Toneri occupied. If those 2 super combatants were held in check, Nagato and Tobi could sweep up the remaining 8 beasts, excluding the 9 tails, quickly. Once Madara became the 10 tails Jinchuriki, he would overpower Toneri and bend the rest of his plans to his will. Back in the Hokage's office, Naruto and Sasuke stepped out of a black hole. Naruto blinked and asked Izanami, who sat composed on a sofa, "Why did you have Sasuke bring me here so late?" Izanami returned the question casually. "Did you feel the commotion just now?" "What commotion?" Naruto scratched his head, baffled. Sasuke snorted. "You've been practicing Sage Mode for 2 years and you still can't tell." Naruto immediately glared at him. Before anything could escalate, Izanami intervened. "I called you both to train. I want to push your strength to the next level." "Really?" Naruto's eyes lit up. "You'll train me personally?" Izanami's prowess with ninjutsu was widely known, and Naruto had always envied Sasuke for the secret techniques he'd been taught. Naruto had struggled with fundamentals and missed years at the academy. He had longed for Izanami's tutelage. Seeing his excitement, Izanami smiled. "I'll teach you. Want to learn my super hurricane serial spheres?" Naruto nodded eagerly. Both the Rasengan and Izanami's super hurricane serial spheres are hand-seal-free ninjutsu, but the latter was beyond anything Naruto had yet mastered. Sasuke could fuse multiple nature transformations into devastating technique using his speed and prowess. Naruto had tried and failed to infuse nature as Sasuke did, so Izanami's offer thrilled him. "All right," she said. "Go to the training ground with Sasuke and wait. I'll teach you once I finish here." With a hand on each of their shoulders, Izanami teleported Naruto and Sasuke away. From far above, Madara watched Konoha and narrowed his eyes. He had just sensed a familiar chakra vanish from the world, the Nine Tails, the beast he had once summoned. If the Nine Tails Jinchuriki had not activated Six-Path Sage Mode, even a Six-Paths level being like Toneri could be detected by Madara, so the Jinchuriki must have hidden in a dimension. He didn't know whether they'd taken refuge in Hinata's dimension or Sasuke's. "Luckily, I have a backup plan," he murmured. "Once I become the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, I can reclaim what I need." Madara accelerated toward the moon. He didn't use a space-time passage. Those had been destroyed by Izanami. Without a teleportation array, only those with enormous personal ability could fly to the moon. He arrived and entered an artificial sun Izanami had recreated, where he encountered a wood clone that had absorbed the yin half of the Nine Tails and some of Toneri's chakra. At the same time, in Izanami's dining room, she had just sent Hinata and the other girls into a hiding dimension and was eating her meal when the space across from her table bent and a fist-sized black hole formed. Madara's wood clone and Obito's wood clone flew through it. Izanami's main body met Madara's clone like it was no surprise. "You're quick, impatient, are you?" she teased around a bite. "But sending only a clone, that's underestimating me. I'm not here to fight you." Madara took a seat, smiling in a way that didn't reach his eyes. "I want to make an offer to the Nine Tails Jinchuriki." "What kind of offer?" Izanami asked, wiping her mouth with a napkin. "I want the Nine Tails inside him. If he willingly gives it up, I'll ensure he and his loved ones are revived after I extract the beast." Obito, standing nearby, twitched. Among the people he cared for were Naruto's parents, offspring of a promise. He wanted to point out how audacious Madara's bargain sounded, but kept silent. Izanami set her spoon down and smiled. "Do you honestly think that's possible?" Madara's gaze sharpened. "Aren't you worried I'll destroy Konoha?" Izanami's reply was cool. "You had to be brought here. Do you think you can move faster than the fastest person in the ninja world?" Their eyes met like two horizons, sparking light between them. Madara's grin didn't fade. "Then let's wait and see." "With so much chakra split off, can your main body take on that guy up there?" Izanami asked. "I don't know," Madara admitted, and then steered the conversation. "Have you gained anything in the last 2 years?" "No." Izanami pretended to be annoyed. "If you had been inactive, I'd suspect you were playing me." "I haven't gained anything either," Madara sighed. "That person lives up to their status, higher even than the progenitor of chakra." "You sure you haven't been deceived? He seems like someone who wouldn't lie. Would a god deceive a monkey?" "That's true. By the way, have you eaten?" "I'm just a wood clone," Madara replied dryly. "I don't need to." "Then you two can just watch me eat," Izanami said, and resumed her meal. They spoke quietly, almost like old acquaintances, while Obito stood between amusement and exasperation. Were they both so calm because they were supremely confident, or because they had already made exhaustive preparations? He couldn't tell, and he didn't dare ask. As Izanami and Madara chatted, the night rippled with movement across the ninja world. Chapter 191, Your End is Only My Beginning, Land of Wind, Hidden Sand Village. Desert nights were bitterly cold, the wind howling through the empty streets. Except for a few patrolling shinobi, every household had extinguished its lights and gone to sleep. Only a handful of taverns remained lit, serving the last of the drunkards. The village was so quiet, the patrols began to slack. Suddenly, a fist-sized black hole opened on Central Street. 3 figures flew out, a wood clone of Nagato and the Akatsuki duo, Deidara and Sasori of the Red Sand. "I'll take the one-tailed Jinchuriki," Nagato said. I'll send a reanimation team to assist you. Leave it to us, leader, Deidara grinned. I heard the 5th Kazakage is just a kid who recently took office. No need for backup. He's nothing. Don't be arrogant. The 5th Kazakage is the same age as the 6th Hokage, and among the 5 Kage candidates, he was the quickest to assume office, Sasori replied in a deep voice. Underestimate him, and you'll lose. Sasori's right. Don't underestimate anyone, Nagato nodded. Work together and capture the one-tailed Jinchuriki quickly. If Otsutsuki Toneri or Izanami intervenes, things will go badly. Deidara and Sasori straightened. Over the past years, the 4 super-tier powers had crushed the rogue Akatsuki's arrogance. They knew what an intervening force capable of rewriting the map could do. Deidara sobered and said, Understood, leader. Move. Sasori unrolled a large scroll and intoned. With a boom, an explosion lit the quiet night. The alarm woke villagers and the remaining Sunagakure shinobi. Ninjutsu, 4 violet flames formation. 4 figures, etched with cracks, positioned themselves southeast, northwest, and northeast of the Kazakage's office and formed hand signs. A purple, translucent barrier sprang up, enclosing the building. It's the 4 violet flames formation. Enemy attack. Is Toneri's puppet army back? Escort the civilians to the shelters, then support the Kazakage. As Jonin directed their subordinates to move civilians and rush toward the barrier, their faces fell. No, this is Edo Tensei. It's the Akatsuki leader. Their target is the Kazakage. Notify the elders. Before they could do more, the Kazakage building was obliterated by an explosion. A figure rode out on a sand cloud and slammed into the barrier. Sand coffin! Gaara raised his hand, shaping the sand beneath an Edo Tensei undead to crush it. The barrier collapsed. This won't be quick. Deidara, who had detonated explosive clay beneath the Kazakage building, forgot Nagato's earlier warning and laughed. Such a grand stage is worthy of my art. Riding his white bird, Deidara chased Gaara. Sasori shook his head but cooperated, directing his puppet forces to stall the Sunagakure ninja and prevent long-range jutsu from interfering, letting Deidara fight as he pleased. The Edo Tensei team assisted Sasori. A battle very much like the original erupted. While hidden sand burned, other great ninja villages were under assault as well. The Akatsuki struck not only the 5 great nations but even Takigakure. Because of the butterfly effects from Izanami, during the final battles, Nagato had taken the 5 tails and 7 tails Jinchuriki as power banks and then released them later. Madara had not stopped him then to avoid alerting the nations too early. Fearing another seizure of their strategic assets, the great nations and Takigakure had forbidden Jinchuriki from going on missions. When Mei Terumi became 5th Mizukage 2 years earlier than in the original timeline, she pardoned the 6 tails Jinchuriki Utakata and recalled him to the hidden mist. Mist Village's strength was too weak. If Utakata hadn't returned, Mei would have stood alone as the only Kaji-level fighter and couldn't even have 2 escort ace combatants. That decision, however, left Mist even more vulnerable. When Otsutsuki Toneri's puppet army later struck, Ao, the Byakugan killer, was killed and his Byakugan taken, compounding the village's losses. Nagato's wood clones, Uchiha Obito's clones, Akatsuki forces, and reanimated armies struck the villages that still harbored Jinchuriki. With Nagato's restraint, Akatsuki and the Edo Tensei units initially employed courtesy rather than slaughter, deploying barriers to trap Jinchuriki, taking them with Kamui if they were subdued to minimize casualties. But if the barrier was broken, all-out war would follow. To counter Toneri's puppet army, almost every village, except Takigakure, had developed measures to break the 4 violet flames formation. Edo Tensei technically has infinite chakra, but that infinity only meant it could recover rapidly after expenditure. The deceased's chakra in life only approximated their Edo Tensei power. Nagato did not possess unlimited Kage-level trump cards and could not deploy the 4 red yang formation everywhere. Watching one formation fall pushed Nagato from restraint to fury. He summoned vast numbers of Edo Tensei undead and waged wide war. The ninja population was small, around 100,000, and compared to civilian populations was negligible. Nagato was prepared to sacrifice the few for the perceived greater good, to make Madara the 10 tails Jinchuriki and give him the power to confront Toneri and protect the world. That night, the ninja world burned. Civilians across the nations had no idea a conflict deciding their future had already erupted. On the moon, Izanami, whose reincarnation eye monitored the war, sat on a throne, chin propped on his hand, watching Uchiha Madara in the center of the hall. "You move fast," he mused, "but I'm curious. What will you do about the Ninetales?" "That's none of your concern," Madara snapped, scrutinizing the Toneri on the throne and his reincarnation eye. "You've changed in 2 years. What are those eyes? Where is your main body?" Because Izanami's wood clone was not in six-path sage mode, Madara immediately detected his chakra. Absorbing the Ninetales yin chakra had boosted the clone to a level beyond a complete Eight-Tails, enough to crush everyone on Earth except Madara himself, making the clone an absolute six-paths level powerhouse. Madara, however, recognized at a glance this was only a clone. The rhythm had slipped from his control. He knew no Toneri chakra resided on Earth. The moon held only the clone's chakra. Toneri's main body was neither on Earth nor the moon, either somewhere deep in the universe or hidden in another dimension. The latter terrified Madara. If Toneri reappeared at a critical moment, Nagato and company would not be able to oppose him. Madara briefly regretted bringing his main body to the moon. Had he known, he would have sent a wood clone upward and kept himself on Earth. If he could quickly deal with the clone, he could return to Earth via the Outer Path demonic statue. Ready to act, he froze when Izanami said, "Do you remember what I told you in our first and second meetings?" Madara's attention snapped back. Izanami smiled contemptuously. "As a mixed-blood Otsutsuki, you had to suffer, lose loved ones, or feel the pangs of love to awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan, causing blindness. Then you had to transplant another who'd awaken the Mangekyo to gain the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan with a low success rate. Even then, your strength hasn't reached humanity's pinnacle. To cross into other dimensions, you needed to achieve duality in one, barely reaching that threshold when you were old and dying. If your resurrection hadn't succeeded, awakening the Rinnegan would have been your limit. Even if resurrected in your prime, without the Six Paths inheritance, mastering Six Paths Sage Mode would be unlikely. Unless you became the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki, crossing dimensional thresholds would still be the endpoint for a mixed blood like you." Madara frowned. "What are you getting at? I obtained the ultimate ocular jutsu you must reach through duality and old age with ease years ago," Izanami said playfully. "But there's a cruel truth I didn't tell you, though you should have noticed it in the genjutsu world." Madara replayed the genjutsu visions in his head and his face changed. Izanami laughed. "You understand. That's the difference between mixed blood and pure blood. The endpoint you must struggle and hope to reach is my starting point. And my midpoint and endpoint are things you cannot imagine." Madara's color drained. He stared at Izanami's reincarnation eye. "What are your eyes called? What's their connection to Otsutsuki Ishiki's eye?" "Isn't it obvious?" Izanami chuckled. Madara stopped wasting words and formed a truth-seeking ball, its white light blazing as it shot toward Izanami like a meteor. Izanami seemed to anticipate it. He rested one hand on his face and raised the other, casually pointing. A black vertical crack split the air, yawned like a mouth, and swallowed the truth-seeking ball whole. The crack closed without releasing any explosive energy. Madara's expression darkened. Toneri had evolved again. Space-time wasn't just for teleportation or object control now. It could be used defensively and perhaps offensively. Madara didn't know whether this ability was exclusive to Toneri's new eyes or a baseline power they now possessed, nor whether Toneri had mastered Six-Path Sage Mode. He needed to find out. Madara gripped his sage staff and flew at Izanami. 4 invisible shadows gathered around him as he unleashed everything from the start. Meanwhile, the war below intensified. A third party had joined. Black cracks opened in the sky and widened into an enormous square black hole. Puppets began to float down, descending from the rift with crushing presence, far more dramatic than their unannounced arrival 2 years earlier. Izanami, who had restrained himself from farming points during his evolution, now reaped the reward. His evolution complete and Madara's signal given, he couldn't miss this chance. Even a small addition counted. He was only tens of thousands of points from upgrading another red entry to a colored one. With the puppet army's arrival, 4 of the great ninja villages, except Konoha and the Hidden Rain were engulfed in renewed devastation as the ruins spread. Takigakure avoided total ruin because the Seven Tails Jinchuriki had already been captured. Konoha, Izanami's home, tensed. Madara's wood clone in Konoha scowled. New information had arrived. "It seems your main body's situation isn't looking good," Izanami said with a smile, sipping tea, satisfied. Madara said nothing. He hesitated over whether to leave and personally seize the remaining tailed beast. If he left, Izanami would be free to act however he wanted, and Madara couldn't predict what this world's fastest would do. Before Madara could decide, an afterimage appeared beside Izanami. Yugao Uzuki dropped to one knee, voice respectful but trembling. "Hokage-sama, something's happened." "I know. You saw it too," Izanami replied, smiling. "I can't leave right now. Go bring up the chakra television." "Yes." Yugao glanced at Madara across from Izanami and vanished in a flash of shunshin, body flicker. Within moments, Konoha erupted into chaos. Chapter 192, The Final Battlefield. Quickly escort the villagers to the shelters. No. Just getting them to shelters isn't enough. Gather every villager and every shinobi below Jonin rank. Assemble them here with me, now. Piercing alarms shattered the quiet night. Jonin in flak vests barked orders to the lower-ranked shinobi. Before anyone could move, Uchiha Sasuke, who had already created a wood clone to continue teaching Uzumaki Naruto in an alternate dimension, issued a higher command. "Yes, Lord Sasuke!" Trusting their second-in-command, the other shinobi fell into formation and obeyed. Villagers, clan members, retired and active shinobi all converged on Sasuke. He lifted his hands. 2 dark streaks like dried blood ran from the corners of his eyes. Then black voids formed in his palms. With a will of their own, the voids surged out to either side of him and expanded into 2 massive black hole portals. "Everyone, go through. The destination is safe," Sasuke said calmly. The villagers who saw the great sun spirit for the first time were stunned, but they did not hesitate. They trusted Sasuke and filed into the portals. Shinobi followed. Kakashi Hake watched from nearby, relief flickering across his face at the sight of Sasuke standing as Konoha's bulwark. Then his gaze drifted to Izanami's house, and his expression hardened with hesitation. Uchiha Obito was there now. Kakashi wanted to confront him, wanted to ask why he had never returned to Konoha if he hadn't died, what had happened to him all these years, why he had attacked his teacher and his teacher's wife, but he couldn't bring himself to go. Over the 2 quiet years Kakashi had had time to think, he had come to a terrible conclusion. Obito must know he had killed Rin. That truth, that Rin had died by Obito's hand, that Obito had entrusted Kakashi with looking after her and failed, made Kakashi afraid to meet him. Within half an hour, every villager and every shinobi below Jonin rank had been evacuated from Konoha. Sasuke did not teleport them to an alternate dimension, but to a city in the Land of Fire. Under Izanami's 6-path sage mode, even if they fled to an island outside the ninja continent, Uchiha Madara could still sense them. As long as they stayed in the real world, they remained a weakness Izanami could exploit. At that moment, Izanami was on a chakra screen conference with the leaders of the other great ninja villages. "Izayoi, we need your help," one elder said. "I'm already helping." "Look," Izanami replied, and pointed at Uchiha Madara on the screen opposite him. Yugao Uzuki immediately turned the camera to show Madara. The elder leaders fell silent. No wonder the head of the Akatsuki had been leading forceful operations, but holding back. Madara had been restraining Izanami, and Izanami had been restraining Madara. They were canceling each other out. "Thank you for your efforts, Izayoi," the elders said before ending the long-distance connection. Izanami waved Yugao to take the screen down and turned to Madara, smiling lightly. "If you have something to do, then do it." "If it's only Nagato at this level, he's nothing," Madara replied with a practiced calm. "With Nagato's power, aside from you, me, and that one in the sky, no one else could stand against him." "That's not necessarily true," Izanami said with an unreadable smile. Madara's smile faltered. A bad feeling stirred in him. 3 hours later, in an alternate dimension, Is this the Nine-Tails chakra? Mom, Dad, thank you." Uzumaki Naruto stood bathed in golden chakra, the memory of meeting his parents in the Jinchuriki space still fresh. With Izanami's 6-path sage mode connecting his chakra to theirs, he had felt their love and learned the truth of his origins. Kurama, the nine tails sealed within him, had been allowed to have his chakra examined, but Izanami had not linked Naruto to Kurama. Naruto felt Kurama's cold hatred of humans in a separate way, learning the origin of that resentment without being wholly consumed by it. The result was immediate and staggering. Naruto's golden body state amplified everything he had. With a single strike, he absorbed massive combat information. His golden body let him condense golden palms and master the super hurricane serial spheres. In less than 5 hours, the young man who was already K-level in Sage mode leapt far ahead, surpassing the pinnacle of the 5 Kage and entering a new tier of power. Izanami had known this would happen. Teaching someone like Naruto was almost redundant. He simply grew, and growth exploded his strength beyond what conventional training could achieve. "Izanami, thank you," Naruto said sincerely. "It was nothing," Izanami replied. "You don't need to thank me." "No, if it hadn't been for you, I wouldn't have known my background or gotten this much stronger," Naruto insisted. Seeing his parents, walking through the memory of the Nine Tails, rampage and understanding his father had made him feel several years older. "If you want to repay me, then fight hard," Izanami said gently. "The war outside has already begun." "What's happening?" Naruto asked. "The Akatsuki are capturing tailed beasts," Izanami said. "The Outer Path demonic statue can seal all 9-tailed beasts and turn them into an ultimate weapon. My main body is pinned down by Uchiha Madara. Nobody on my side can match the head of the Akatsuki alone. Your next mission is to support the village Akatsuki targets next. You must not let that village's Jinchuriki be taken." "I understand," Naruto said gravely. "Don't worry. Sasuke will assist you." Izanami glanced to the wood clone of Sasuke beside him. The clone understood and created a black hole with the Great Sun Spirit, pulling Naruto out of the alternate dimension. When they reappeared, they were on the ruined battlefield of the Cloud Village. Nagato's main push had been against the Cloud. Besides Konoha, the Cloud and Iwagakure were the only villages the Akatsuki hadn't easily crushed. In the 2 years since the 4th Raikage ceded leadership to Darui and had been training with Killer Bee in the Cloud Thunder Gorge, he had woken repeatedly from nightmares, haunted by the powerlessness he had felt before Otsutsuki Toneri and the Akatsuki. He refused to collapse. He had pushed himself mercilessly, tying lightning and the Eight Tails' power to his body until he had become a spear and a shield of raw ferocity, one of the 5 Kage's top extremes. He and B had become the strongest AB combination in history and held out against Nato long enough to prevent an instant defeat. If Nagato had only called 4 Kage-level undead and used the 4 Red Yang formation to trap the 4th Raikage and Killer Bee, then sealed the field with the Tree World Advent technique, the AB duo might have been unable to escape. The sealing branches drained chakra on contact and could perform sealing jutsu. But the puppet army intervened, and the puppet commander who landed in the Cloud fight was Danzo Shimura. Danzo's Ranmaru could fly and had been made invisible. Every time Nagato or Tobi was about to secure their target, Danzo would strike and ruin the opportunity. That interference kept Nagato from winning outright. Still, the Cloud suffered terrible damage at the hands of the Edo Tensei army, the puppet army, and other forces. The capture of other tailed beasts, meanwhile, had gone smoothly. The Hidden Mist fell first, its Kage-level defenders outmatched by Kasame Hoshigaki and the second Mizukage revived by Edo Tensei. Utakata and Mei Terumi could not resist. The Sansgara had been defeated by Deidara, who single-handedly took the village's tailed beast. Iwagakure's fight was lost to Nagato's deployment of the second Tsuchikage Mu, the Dust Release Master. Onoki could only hold a temporary stalemate and could not stop the capture. Konan, Hidan, and Kakuzu easily subdued other targets. The revived Three Tails was taken by Uchiha Obito's main body. In less than 6 hours, Ichibi Shukaku, Three Tails Isobu, Four Tails Son Goku, Five Tails Kokua, Six Tails Seiken, and Seven Tails Chome had been seized by the Akatsuki. Only Two Tails Matatabi, Eight Tails Juki in the Cloud, and Nine Tails Kurama in Konoha remained uncaptured. Those last beasts made the ruined Cloud the new focal point of the war. Akatsuki forces who had captured beasts didn't linger. Using Obito's wood clone's Kamui, they shifted the battlefield to the Cloud to reinforce Nagato. The scattered Edo Tensei and puppet forces also streamed toward the Cloud. In hours, the puppet army had flooded the field, and Izanami's accumulated points, an odd measure of battlefield gains, had already soared past 1 million. The real value, Izanami thought, was on the cloud battlefield. When the Akatsuki, Edo Tensei, and puppet forces gathered, a black hole opened and Naruto and Sasuke's wood clone arrived as well. Uchiha Madara sensed them immediately. "Is this your trump card against Nagato?" Madara asked Izanami across the distance. "It should be enough," Izanami replied with a calm smile. "Aren't you afraid of putting a lamb in a tiger's den?" "If you think you can do it, try," Madara sneered. Their gazes locked, sparks of tension flaring like a horizon of flames. Then, as if the moment weighed too much, Uchiha Obito's wood clone suddenly broke free of its own control, reached out, and put a hand on Madara's shoulder. Using Kamui, Obito took Madara away. Izanami did not stop it. Madara disappeared, as if plucked from the sky. The Jonin gathered outside Izanami's house, waiting for orders, let out a collective sigh. They were relieved a battle hadn't erupted in Konoha itself, but their relief mixed with dread for Izanami's safety. As the only superlative force among the 5 great shinobi countries, if Izanami died or was defeated, there would be nothing left to stop the Akatsuki. They wanted to help, but were powerless. All they could do was pray their Hokage would win. On the cloud battlefield, devastation and chaos unfolded. Puppet-controlled and Edo Tensei forces tore through ranks. Many Kumo shinobi fell. Then a roar cut through the noise. "Everyone evacuate now. Don't worry about others or comrades. Your mission is to survive. Evacuate this area immediately." The 4th Raikage's order smashed the morale of the remaining Kumogakure forces. Even the battle-hardened fighters turned and ran. Nagato's command followed moments later. "Do not let the Two-Tails Jinchuriki escape." Akatsuki members, shaken by Izanami's sudden appearance here as well, snapped back into pursuit. On their side were 2 superlative combatants. One person's appearance wasn't enough to deter them. "Naruto, Sasuke, your opponent is Nagato," Izanami said softly as he appeared beside Naruto. He looked up at Madara, who hovered in the sky, and then instructed, "Your priority is to prevent him from capturing the 8 Tails." Both Naruto and Sasuke nodded solemnly. A black hole opened again, and Sasuke's main body arrived. The air became violently oppressive. The 4th Raikage and Killer Bee, who had been unable to leave, felt as if someone had pressed a hand around their throats. The invisible weight made breathing hard. At that moment, Uchiha Madara moved. Chapter 193, 10 Tails Jinchuriki, the True 6 Paths. Madara Summoning Technique. Uchiha Madara did not attack Izanami or fly toward Killer Bee. Instead, he rapidly formed hand seals and pressed his palms to the ground. With a thunderous boom, a vast cloud of white smoke billowed out and spread. Because they were on a high mountain peak, strong winds howled and instantly tore the smoke apart. A deafening roar made the fleeing shinobi flinch as if some apex predator had declared its presence. Under the moonlight, a monstrous figure with 9 closed eyes and a body like withered wood stood on the Cloud Village battlefield. No one there was unfamiliar with that horror. It was the prize Otsutsuki Toneri had come from the moon to reclaim, the Outer Path demonic statue. If anyone had doubted before, all doubt now vanished. The last person to summon that monster had been the Akatsuki's leader. This time, the summoner was Uchiha Madara. Only someone who possessed the Rinnegan could call it. Hidden Cloud Village alone still did not fully understand its powers. The 4th Raikage's face went pale, not because of the statue's power, but because there were 2 Uchihas standing on its head. The Madara they had seen moments ago had been nothing more than a clone. Madara lifted a hand to the shoulder of his wood clone, turning it into a white seed and absorbing it back into himself. Chakra surged through him. He looked down at Izanami and grinned. "The struggle's about to begin. Try your best to stop me." At that, a fist-sized black hole opened beside him and several distorted figures tumbled out. The Outer Path demonic statue split its gaping maw and spat out multiple chains that snaked upward and bound the 5 Jinchuriki who fell from the void, along with a spiked turtle the size of a child that housed the 3 tails. The bound turtle visibly shrank as purple chakra flowed along the chains into the statue's mouth. Izanami instantly activated 6 Paths Sage Mode and formed a truth-seeking ball, hurling it at the largest of the 3 tails. The ball flew, But before it could reach the turtle, it slammed into an invisible barrier and was repelled. "What's happening?" someone cried. "What kind of ninjutsu is this? I feel." The sentences broke off as Sasuke and Naruto, who had just entered Sage Mode, stared at the rebounded truth-seeking ball. They did not focus on the ball itself. After all, a single touch of that sphere could annihilate all creation, but on the point in the sky where it had been repelled. A chill ran down their spines. Their senses insisted something terrible lurked there. Izanami's sensory perception could only make out a hazy black shadow. Those with supreme ocular ninjutsu saw it clearly, a limbo-like shadow in Madara's shape, holding a six-path staff with 9 truth-seeking balls orbiting him. Limbo shadows could not cast limbo itself, but they could wield whatever powers their host possessed. No wonder Naruto and Sasuke were fixated. Izanami had expected the truth-seeking ball to be repelled. The ambush had been a feint. He addressed the others, voice steady despite the danger. "Everyone, withdraw from here. This fight is not for you to join, or even watch. If you stay and are killed by the aftershocks, don't blame me for failing to warn you." Members of Akatsuki and the Kumo Shinobi had already fled, so Izanami's words were meant for the rest. The fourth Raikage and Killer Bee exchanged looks, then transformed into streaks of blue, white, and orange-red light and streaked away from the new Hidden Cloud's peak. Nagato followed. Before leaving, he glanced back at the place of the limbo shadow with trembling eyes. Only Six Paths Sage Mode could vaguely sense that shadow. All others could only feel impending doom. The sensation of fatal danger from something they could barely perceive drove them to retreat. Sasuke and Naruto followed close behind, as did the Reanimation Army and the Puppet Corps. Soon only Izanami and Madara remained on the Cloud Village battlefield. Another black hole opened. The distorted form of Ni Yugito, taken earlier by Uchiha Obito's main body, fell out and was bound by chains as blue-black chakra flowed into the statue's mouth. The 3 tails and several other tailed beasts were absorbed into the Outer Path demonic statue. The 9 eyes on its head, previously shut, now snapped open, 7 bloodshot orbs staring forth, enough to make even the brave sick to their stomachs. Roar. This time, the roar did more than frighten. It became a transparent halo of sound that quickly expanded. The invisible shockwaves shattered the ground, whipping sand and rock into the air. Those Kumo Shinobi who had fled to neighboring peaks, along with the Reanimation Army and Puppet Corps, were thrown about, knocked down or sent tumbling like leaves in a gale. The waves spread in all directions and also swept upward and downward. The mists that usually hid the Cloud Village were blasted away, revealing a sky full of stars and a seemingly close full moon. Those who looked closely saw the moon had turned from silvery white to a crimson blood moon. The mountain trembled and cracked. A single roar had produced an earth-shattering anomaly. The seedling of the god tree, bound to the earth, killable only by sealing, was awakening. Izanami felt an odd thrill, though he showed only solemnity. All creation of attraction. Madara released an invisible gravitational pull, but not aimed at Izanami. He drew the near-death Jinchuriki to the crown of the statue, then raised his hand and lightly patted each of them. The sun mark on his palm flared with extreme yang release, yanking the Jinchuriki, all but spiritually gone, back into the world. A black hole opened, and Uchiha Obito's wood clone emerged, swallowing the Jinchuriki into the Kamui dimension. Izanami's surprise was audible. "You actually saved them? That's not like you." "Do you know me well?" Madara sneered. "People's prejudices are like mountains. You, the descendants of the 5 great shinobi countries, cannot fathom the Konoha ideal Hashirama and I founded." "You can say what you like," Izanami replied. "You'll excuse yourself for saving people, and excuse yourself for killing them. You insist on reasons where the world clearly runs on the rule of the strong." Madara gave a short huff. "You, Hashirama, Nagato, and I. None of us are the same." The killing intent in Madara's eyes, the same coldness he had shown toward Otsutsuki Toneri, surfaced now. "Someone like you, with such power, is dangerous. Please take those Otsutsuki with you to hell," Izanami taunted with a provocative smile. "If you can, then try." Madara did not waste words. He signed with one hand. The Outer Path demonic statue vanished into an enormous cloud of white smoke. Within that brilliantly white fog, a blinding light flashed, then tore through the darkness with a thunderous explosion that swallowed the mountain where the new hidden cloud village stood. This blast was unlike a clay bomb or a tailed beast boulder. The white light burned with an absolute, concise beauty and a destructive force that even Deidara admired. "So, such beautiful art," Deidara murmured. When the light dissipated, the mountain was simply gone. No smoke, no debris, no trace. It was as if the earth itself had been erased. Even Deidara, who had imagined countless self-destruction scenarios, admitted defeat before such power. From afar, Killer Bee, fighting Nagato and Tobi's armor with the fourth Raikage, Naruto and Sasuke, felt the wave of death the blast carried and covered his fear with his usual rap. "Fool, bastard, such terrifying white light. Even from here, I feel the aura of death. It's stronger than my tailed beast ball." Eight Tails Juki, ever the contrarian, snorted. "That's a truth-seeking ball, the power of the six-path sage." Killer Bee froze. Nagato's eyes flashed, and he formed hand seals, shouting, "Sage art! Wood release, wood golem technique." The earth shuddered, and a colossal wooden hand arose, trying to seize the Eight Tails' foot and drain its chakra. The Eight Tails was quick, hopping to dodge, but the wooden hand stretched after it and caught a swaying tail. Killer Bee and Juki didn't hesitate. They used their signature tail shedding. The tail in the wooden hand detached and writhed in its palm. "Sage art, storm release, white dragon." Sasuke took the chance to attack Nagato with a massive, dazzling white dragon. Nagato dodged and kept chasing the Eight Tails. "Bee, run!" shouted the fourth Raikage. The Eight Tails hit the ground and fled toward other peaks, with the Raikage, Naruto, Sasuke, and Nagato in pursuit. Tobi's low chuckle echoed in Nagato's mind. Nagato only smiled. No one noticed the wooden giant hand standing like a small hill, and the tail in its grasp had already vanished. Boom, boom, boom. Explosions rang out, louder than thunder, from peaks near and far. In the distance, white lights bloomed on other mountains, identical to the light that had erased the Hidden Clouds mountain. Izanami and Madara had relocated the battle to more remote locations, and they did so with overwhelming force. After 6 consecutive detonations, the white lights ceased. Both combatants remained in six-path sage mode, unseen by normal chakra sensing. The battlefield had moved beyond all sight and range. No one now knew what was happening between Izanami and Madara. Madara, still accompanied by 2 truth-seeking balls, finally halted in midair. He did not look at Izanami, who hovered nearby. Instead, his gaze fixed on the blood-red moon. His brow was drawn in thought. "Are you afraid of that fellow's interference?" Izanami asked, amused. Madara felt a strange familiarity looking at the calm Izanami, but outwardly he sneered. "You both act like you have nothing to fear. Do you really think that by each taking half the 9 tails you can defeat me?" "You know that?" Izanami sounded surprised. "Humph. Who do you think first summoned the 9 tails?" Madara countered coldly. "As the 9 tails' true master, would I not know the strength of its chakra? When I last fought that Otsutsuki Toneri, if he had not possessed the chakra of the other half of the 9 tails, he would not have been my match. You all are so arrogant. Pay the price." Madara formed hand seals with both hands. Summoning technique. Roar. The familiar roar scattered the white smoke as the outer path demonic statue reappeared, its mouth opening above, which a black hole swirled. An octopus arm and 2 cracked corpses fell into the statue's maw. Its remaining 2 shut eyes snapped open and its form shifted, becoming more humanoid. The tail that had stood rigid became supple and lashed the ground, roaring. The outer path demonic statue had reverted to the 10 Tails' initial form. Madara stood with his hands ready and looked at the stunned Izanami. He grinned. "It's not the perfect form, but it's enough for you two. 6 paths, 10 Tails coffin seal." The 10 Tails body convulsed as if sucked into a void and liquefied, surging into Madara's body like a tide. Flesh enveloped him, forming a giant sphere. At visible speed, that massive flesh shifted from the color of dead wood to pure white. Izanami, who had first shown shock, allowed a small curl to the corner of his mouth. The greatest treasure had finally appeared. With a crack, the flesh burst into iridescent feathers that drifted away. Madara reappeared, holding the sage staff, but his appearance had transformed utterly. His skin had turned the pale white of clay. His long black hair was white. His familiar crimson armor and tight battle suit had been replaced by a white robe. The 7 truth-seeking balls that had been lost earlier had returned and orbited him. An ocean of chakra swelled within him, seemingly infinite. His ocular power had increased beyond what it had been. After the Six-Path Sage, the second 10 Tails Jinchuriki in 1,000 years had finally re-emerged. This was the true Six Paths Madara. Chapter 194, Black Zetsu's Counterattack, The Sword of Wishes. Uchiha Madara's transformation was something almost no one had witnessed directly. From afar, the others only saw the Outer Path demonic statue reappear for an instant and then vanish. Only Black Zetsu was different. Somewhere else in the Shinobi world, Black Zetsu, guarded by a wood clone of Uchiha Madara, showed no change on the surface, but inside, he was trembling. After 1,000 years, the 10 Tails and Half Jinchuriki had finally returned. Only 2 steps remained. Madara had to cast the infinite Tsukuyomi and infuse it with their mother's will. Then, the goddess could be resurrected through Madara's body. Such chakra, the main body succeeded, Madara said, his smile small as he looked in the direction of his true body. He turned his head toward the Zetsu attached to him and asked with a bitter chuckle, "Black Zetsu, are you pleased?" "Yes, very pleased." Black Zetsu's laugh was hoarse. He dropped his respectful tone. "Madara, you learned who I was from the Sage of Six Paths, didn't you? So you are really Otsutsuki Kaguya's 3rd child?" Madara's eyes narrowed. "You still doubt it?" Black Zetsu blinked, surprised. "Didn't the sage tell you? Otherwise, how would you have received his sage mode?" "I never met the Sage of Six Paths," Madara said plainly. "I only inherited his legacy." Black Zetsu's face went still. "Then how did you know?" Otsutsuki Toneri's eyes, Madara said quietly. "Toneri can see the past. He saw you when Kaguya secretly created you while sealed by the Sage Brothers. He saw you stoke Indra and spark that clan war. He even saw you alter the stone tablets left by the sage and use yin-yang release to claim you were the incarnation of my will." Black Zetsu went silent. He had not expected his identity to be revealed not by a hidden clue Madara discovered, nor by Hagoromo directly, but by the eye technique of Hamura's descendant. That Toneri could see into the past, into events 1,000 years old, was beyond what Black Zetsu had imagined. If Toneri could see that far back, did that mean he had known of Madara's resurrection contingency for ages? If he had, why hadn't Toneri stopped Madara, killed the Jinchuriki to prevent the 10 Tails rebirth until the Rinnegan could be recovered? Zetsu smelled a conspiracy. He could not understand why Toneri would refrain from intervening. Before he could unravel it, Madara asked, "Do you know Otsutsuki Ishiki?" "Ishiki?" Black Zetsu fumbled through his stored memories, uncertain. "Is he Toneri's father or ancestor?" Madara's expression darkened. "As the will of the goddess of the rabbit, you don't know Ishiki?" Black Zetsu felt his heart skip. This sounded important. "Why do you assume I should know him?" Madara didn't answer directly. He thought for a moment, studying Zetsu, then said slowly, "As a product of yin-yang release, do you carry Kaguya's memories?" "I am my mother's 3rd son. How could I have her memories?" Black Zetsu snapped, as if the suggestion offended him. Madara realized Zetsu genuinely lacked those recollections. Perhaps even Hagoromo or Hamura did not know of Ishiki, the being who had come to Earth with Kaguya and ranked even higher than her. Kaguya would not have told her son she had betrayed a master or been merely a servant. Only Toneri's past-seeing eyes would hold such secrets. Madara did not know how much of that tale was true. It didn't matter. The main body had become the 10 Tails Jinchuriki. Its chakra and life force far exceeded anything Toneri or Izanami might do to resist. If he could capture Toneri and read his memories, he would learn the truth. Madara chuckled. "Wait and see, Black Zetsu. Once the main body finds a way to control you, I'm sure it will give you a fitting end." Black Zetsu laughed back, but it was a cold sound. "Madara, you underestimate me." "No, you underestimate the goddess of the rabbit." Madara's expression shifted. "What do you mean? Your sage mode cannot sense my presence, can it?" Zetsu's certainty was insolent. "The 10 Tails is only the divine tree incarnate. The real core is the chakra fruit that forms every 1,000 years. There are primary and secondary forms, higher and lower. You monkeys cannot comprehend Mother's power." Madara's composure fell away. He was about to relay their conversation to his main body in real time when his limbs froze. "Black Zetsu, you." Madara's eyes widened. Disbelief made his voice thin. The black growth attached to him chuckled ominously. A mere wood clone. Did you really think you could control me? I had the power to break free from the start. I was just careful not to ruin the plan. Now that you are the 10 Tails' Jinchuriki, the outcome is settled. Madara, you are only my pawn. Even with the sage's legacy, you are still a pawn. The black substance that covered half of Madara's body began to spread. It devoured the rest of the wood clone and, having overridden the clone, sank into the earth with an ephemeral ripple. Black Zetsu fled through the soil, racing toward Madara's main body and toward Izanami. At that same moment, Izanami was scrutinizing Madara. Dozens of colored bubbles floated around him, visual entries denoting abilities and limits. Izanami ignored the low entries that barely reached into other dimensions, focusing on the colored and red ones. Madara had originally had one colored entry, Bloodline Limit, Rinnegan. His Sage Mode had been an ability granted by the Sage of Six Paths and required the sun mark on his palm. It wasn't the same kind of innate, energy-based Sage body that could be sustained in the void without natural energy. Now, however, Madara had several new colored entries, including a true Sage body. The new colored entries read, Bloodline Limit, Rinne Sharingan, colored, Sage's body, red. Bloodline Limit, Wood Release, colored. Self-Healing, Flight, colored. All Attribute Constitution, red. With his original Bloodline Limit, Rinnegan, Madara now had 7 colored entries. The upgrades to Wood Release and All Attribute Constitution drew Izanami's attention. Izanami himself had 5 colored entries, 2 fewer than Madara. If Madara's Wood Release and All Attribute Constitution hadn't been elevated to colored, he would also have only 5. Those 2 extras were precisely what Izanami lacked. When Wood Release reached colored status, it truly became a Bloodline Limit again, a power that traced back to the divine tree. Chakra itself springs from the tree's fruit. Bloodline limits are the fusion of chakra natures, and Wood Release is the limit closest to the divine tree. Without a sage body or powerful life energy, combining water and earth natures usually yields lava release, not wood release. By absorbing the 10 tails, the divine tree made manifest, Wood Release would naturally return to its source and ascend to an extra-dimensional plane. Bloodline limits of that caliber are akin to the fusion of 7 nature transformations, something beyond ordinary truth-seeking orbs. Madara's all-attribute constitution reaching colored level likely came from the interaction of Wood Release and the Rinne Sharingan. Izanami's eyes narrowed. This might let him upgrade his own all-attribute constitution toward an extra-dimensional level later, making it easier to synthesize a full bloodline limit. Madara, however, was unaware of these calculations. He felt the changes in his body and murmured, awestruck, "Is this the Sage of Six Paths legacy? Incredible. This is on a whole different level." He looked at Izanami opposite him and felt suddenly minute by comparison. Absorbing and sealing the Outer Path demonic statue, which held the 7-tailed beasts, had not only given him their combined chakra, but had transformed his life force qualitatively. Madara glanced down at the white sun mark on his palm, digesting the information filling his mind, and a grin spread over his face. "I won," he whispered to Izanami. The sage's staff in his hand shimmered and became a strange black longsword. Izanami recognized the blade. He had seen it once before. In the original tale, Uchiha Obito, who became the Six Paths gatekeeper, possessed the blade and had defiled its reputation as a world-shaping weapon. This was the sage's principal weapon, Ameno no Hoko, the Divine Path's sword, also known as the Sword of Wishes. Without Wara swept the sword in a horizontal arc, a blinding white light expanded across Izanami's vision. The 9 truth-seeking balls that orbited Izanami shot forward, liquefied, and fused into a black shield that took the strike. The white radiance could not break that shield. The part it struck vanished, but the rest of the light sliced onward and disappeared in a flash. For an instant, observers on distant battlefields, and even those awake in the land of lightning, saw the dark sky buckle into sudden daylight. The surrounding blackness was chased away, and the heavens above the land of lightning were, for those few seconds, clear and star-filled. The blood moon hovered with a terrifying, silent beauty. People assumed it was an illusion and instinctively looked up. Then everyone's breath caught. Where clouds had hung above the land of lightning, there were none. The night sky was utterly open, glittering with stars. The mountain range behind Izanami bore a fresh, jagged cut. Peaks had been cleaved and turned to nothingness, not merely trimmed as by a Suzanu's blade, but erased as if by a truth-seeking explosion. Madara's strike had the nature of a truth-seeking ball blast, yet it had consumed no orbs. His seemingly boundless chakra had not been affected. This was not a special move. It was a basic attack. This was the power of the Sword of Wishes. The Amenuhoko that had once been in Obito's hands was not on the same plane as the Amenuhoko now wielded by Madara. Izanami's eyes, unsteady for once, trembled. A grin split Izanami's face, honest exhilaration lighting him up. Is this the power of a ten-tails Jinchuriki? No, this is the power of the Sage of Six Paths. He stared at the black blade with pure admiration. Yin-yang release can be used like this. Such strength approaches space-time itself, beyond the 7 nature transformations. As befits the ancestor of ninja, this is extraordinary. Madara watched Izanami's reaction and felt a flicker of confusion. He had expected fear. Instead, Izanami's excitement left Madara wondering, had the advantage truly shifted? Chapter 195, Identity Exposed. Otsutsuki Izayoi appears. Given your current state, can you cast Infinite Tsukuyomi? After a moment of excitement, Izanami turned to Uchiha Madara. In the past 2 years, I've searched hundreds of alternate dimensions and found no trace of Otsutsuki Ishiki. I strongly suspect he didn't flee to another dimension at all. He stayed in the real world and hid himself with some special means of sensing, much like Black Zetsu. At the last words, a flash of clarity cut through Madara's mind like sunlight breaking a storm. He stopped caring about Izanami's earlier calm. He looked up at the blood-red moon and shot into the sky. While flying, he tore off his horned forehead protector. A vertical mark split open on his brow, revealing a crimson eye with black ripple patterns and 9 black tomoi circling the pupil. The reincarnation Sharingan, a bloodline limit normally attainable only through a chakra fruit or becoming the 10-tails Jinchuriki. Madara glanced down at Izanami, who didn't move to stop him, and a cold doubt flickered across his face. From the beginning, aside from the moment Izanami used a truth-seeking ball against the 3-tails Isobu, the other man had cooperated with him at every turn. When Madara shifted the battlefield, Izanami followed. His attack on Isobu might even have been a show. Madara had assumed Izanami's cooperation came from concern for those on the field. But after seeing the power of the Amenuhoko, observing Izanami's odd reactions, and hearing his unsolicited suggestion to cast Infinite Tsukuyomi to try to find Ishiki, everything started to feel off. Yet when Madara assessed Izanami's chakra, far weaker than his own, even less imposing than Otsutsuki Toneri's, he stifled the doubt. Against absolute power, conspiracies mean nothing. Their gap was simply too vast. He focused on the blood moon and unleashed the terrifying ocular power of the reincarnation Sharingan. In the years since it had been split, the moon had healed, its surface restored by the gravity and energy drawn by the 6 paths Chibaku Tensei. Under Madara's ocular influence, the red moon began to change. Black concentric circles, each smaller than the last, appeared across its face like ripples. Huge black tomoi dotted the ripples, and a giant black orb took the lunar center. The transformation drew attention everywhere. Soldiers on distant battlefields, townsfolk in the 5 great nations staring up at the sky, even people overseas, saw the moon alter. What is that? Sharingan? Everyone, be careful. This could be a ninjutsu. It's terrifying. Whether the earlier disaster or that moon now, these jutsu are godlike. Can Shinobi really wield such power? Is it Madara's eye, or some technique developed by the Hokage? Unease spread among the living. Only Black Zetsu, tunneling at high speed under the earth, reacted with delighted surprise. He had expected that once Madara learned the truth, he might refuse to cast Infinite Tsukuyomi. Black Zetsu had a contingency to force Madara's hand at a critical moment, but never guessed Madara would willingly perform the jutsu now. Madara's lingering doubt about Toneri's story was good news for Black Zetsu. If Madara performed Infinite Tsukuyomi, Black Zetsu would be one step from reviving his mother. He slowed and continued burrowing toward Izanami and Madara. Madara shaped the unhand seal and whispered, "Shine upon the world, Infinite Tsukuyomi." A blinding white light, sharper than sunlight and like the detonation of a truth-seeking ball, burst from the moon. Night turned to day as the light cut through every shadow. No barrier, basement, or shelter shielded anyone. Except those whose bodies and minds were sealed, existing like the dead. Everyone else was flooded by the light. Faces all went vacant. On the battlefield, amid the chaos, only the Edo Tensei army and the puppet forces remained unaffected. Genin and Kage alike, even Naruto and Sasuke in Sage mode, stood blankly, eyes fixed on the radiant orb. Where the white light touched, people's eyes developed ripple patterns and turned into purple Rinnegan. After enslaving the world with infinite Tsukiyomi, Madara followed with wood release elevated to a bloodline-level technique. The white light itself was more than ocular power. It was chakra containing 7 nature transformations. As a bloodline limit user, Madara used that light to cast a bloodline-scale wood release. The ninja world trembled. Cracks splintered the earth and branches surged from the fissures. In empty areas, they were ordinary trees, but in cities and dense regions, massive, mountain-sized limbs erupted, bending and towering with impossible scale. Vines shot forth and, as if guided, threaded through all barriers and bound every person caught in the light into zongzi, rice dumpling shapes, which the vines hoisted and hung from the branches. Through his sight, Madara saw each zongzi shimmer with light, small or large, bright or dim. Those lights represented life force and chakra. The shinobi's lights outshone ordinary people's. By size and intensity alone, Madara could instantly pick out every ninja among them, regardless of village or status. Their strength and even secrets hidden in their bodies were laid bare. He could distinguish Naruto and Killer Bee's Yankurama and Eight Tails, and even the Yin Nine Tails Izanami had so well concealed that Six-Path Sage Mode sensing had missed it. Madara's expression fell. He looked at Izanami, who alone seemed completely unaffected by infinite Tsukuyomi, and asked in a low voice, "Why do you have the other half of the Nine Tails?" "Haven't you already guessed?" Izanami smiled. Madara's mood plummeted. With his suspicion confirmed, every earlier oddity about Izanami made sense. Recalling their meeting 2 years ago, when Madara sought an alliance, rage surged through him. "Should I call you Otsutsuki Toneri or Otsutsuki Izayoi?" he demanded. "Otsutsuki Toneri does exist," Izanami said as he rose to hover beside Madara. "He is indeed a descendant of the clan on the moon. Thanks to him, I awakened the reincarnation eye." As he spoke, Izanami's features shifted. His black hair turned white, horns like a dragon's grew above his brow, and his blue eyes flushed gold with reincarnation power. A black rift opened in the space beside him, forming a dark doorway. A figure resembling Otsutsuki Toneri flew out and was reabsorbed into Izanami, and his chakra swelled dramatically. "After all these years, I can finally return to my original form." He smoothed his white bangs and chuckled at Madara's grim face. "Let me introduce myself properly. My name is Otsutsuki Izayoi." Madara fell silent. Far away, Black Zetsu, who had fled, gaped. How is this possible? Besides Hagoromo and Hamura, those 2 rebellious sons, how could there be a third pure-blood Otsutsuki in this world? He clearly looks like someone of later generations, lacking a pure-blood mother and the god tree's chakra. How could a mixed blood become pure? Bloodline regression can't do that. Who is he? Is he connected to Otsutsuki Ishiki? Madara wondered aloud. After becoming the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, Madara had expanded his understanding of alternate dimensions and bloodline limits. He admitted Izanami's power didn't fit normal explanations. Those golden eyes matched the strength of the reincarnation Sharingan Madara bore. To reach such power, one normally had to become the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, yet Izanami had acquired it easily. His bloodline purity seemed comparable to the rabbit goddess. If the earlier version of Izanami was true, Madara found it hard not to suspect some tie to Ishiki, perhaps a descendant, a vessel, or Ishiki himself. "I'm not him, nor related to him," Izanami said with a helpless smile. "Originally I planned to use you, who inherited the 6 paths, to find him, but after 2 years I found nothing, and it seems infinite Tsukuyomi has no effect on him. That man truly lives up to his fearsome reputation as Kaguya's superior." "You have no credibility left," Madara ground out. "I've lived 2 lives and never met anyone so despicable. Even Tobirama is far beneath you." "Believe me or not," Izayoi said without concern, "my goal will be achieved once you become the Ten Tails Jinchuriki." Madara's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" "You'll see soon enough," Izayoi replied with a teasing smile. Before the battle ends, go and retrieve the 8 tails and 9 tails. Only then will you be truly complete. Madara stared at him for a moment. Then he seized the Ame no Hoko and swung another white slash toward Izanami, the blade moving like a falling meteor. The strike expanded with terrifying speed, a spreading white light that nearly filled Izanami's vision. This cut was more powerful than before. Like a truth-seeking ball in nature, it threatened to unmake everything. Earlier, even Izanami in Six-Path Sage mode had needed a black shield of 9 truth-seeking balls to block such a blow. This time, Izanami merely raised a hand. A massive horizontal plane of white light stalled before him. The attack that could cross the land of lightning in seconds, clear its skies, and was unstoppable in its path was stopped by a single palm. Then something stranger still happened. The vast white slash began to converge on Izanami as if drawn by a magnet, seeping into his body through his palm. The sight was exactly like the Rinnegan's Preta path absorbing ninjutsu, and Madara's face twisted in disbelief. How is this possible? Black Zetsu reacted the same. The scene was outrageous. The truth-seeking ball and Six Paths arts, things the Rinnegan and reincarnation eyes themselves could not absorb, had seemingly been taken in by Izanami. Madara's strike carried 7 nature transformations and yin-yang release. Even as the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, he could not absorb it. If Madara couldn't, neither could Hagoromo, Hamura, or Kaguya. Yet Izayoi had accomplished what they could not. If he could truly absorb such power, then the truth-seeking ball's self-detonation and the Six Paths arts might be useless against him. What sort of ability was this? Before Madara could fully process it, he twisted and flew toward Killer Bee and Uzumaki Naruto. Izanami's unknown techniques had put him on the defensive. His arrogance as the Ten Tails Jinchuriki melted into urgency. He had to confront this sly, dangerous, and despicable brat in full, otherwise he felt no security at all. The pressing need in his chest made Madara instinctively ignore Izanami's earlier words. If someone who was treacherous to the core wanted him to become the complete Ten Tails Jinchuriki, there had to be a darker motive behind it. Chapter 196, the second exclusive dojutsu, a will-powered strike. Uchiha Madara flew at incredible speed, urgency burning through him. He knew Izanami's space-time powers well enough, whether it was the Black Portal, the Flying Thunder God technique, or teleporting an object to a specified location and then using Flying Thunder God to follow. These methods outstripped any ordinary flight. While still airborne, Madara formed hand seals and activated wood release of Bloodline limit caliber. The mountain beneath them cracked and split. From its ravine, a branch the size of a mountain burst forth like a giant python breaking free. The branch lunged toward Madara, and he crawled into a small fissure as if into a shelter. 3 enormous chakra masses of different colors coalesced around the branch, bathing it in flickering light for only a few seconds before fading. They were the chakra of the 8 Tails Juki within Killer Bee, the Yang Kurama within Uzumaki Naruto, and the Yin 9 Tails that Izanami had sealed and entrusted to a wood clone. Infinite Tsukuyomi and the Divine Tree's World Advent had not only trapped everyone in an illusion, but used wood release to feed them to the tree until they became white Zetsu. It was also a method of recovering chakra. Madara could siphon chakra from those suspended like mummies from those branches. He chose to absorb only the 8 Tails and 9 Tails chakra, but even that was enormous, enough to restore him to a near-limitless reserve. He could now use any ninjutsu, Six-Path Sage techniques, or true bloodline powers at will. Did he only take the 8 Tails and 9 Tails? He's still too generous, Madara murmured. When Madara emerged from the branch, Izanami was already waiting, his golden reincarnation eye appraising Madara's renewed power. Your chakra still doesn't compare to the Six-Path Sage I witnessed, he said. After awakening Ame no Hoko, Izanami had used his reincarnation eye's far sight and X-ray vision, the kind that could span the entire ninja world, to observe past events. He had watched the Otsutsuki mother and son battle across ice and snow, seen the divine tree become the 10 Tails, and witnessed it sealed within Hagoromo. Madara might now be a perfect 10 Tails Jinchuriki, but he was still not on the same level as Hagoromo. Part of that gap was lineage. Hagoromo and Hamura had each inherited the divine tree's chakra directly, and all later chakra descended from Hagoromo. Even diluted over a millennium, the origin mattered. Still, what Madara had become already surpassed the six paths Madara seen in history. "Enough to deal with you," Madara sneered. "You will pay for your arrogance." He added and lunged. Madara seized the floating Ameno no Hoko and swung, a white arc of annihilation slicing through the air toward Izanami. The speed was terrifying, too fast even for teleports to react in time, but Izanami did not dodge. He simply raised his right hand, and the white slash froze in midair before him. Madara fixed his Rinnegan and Reincarnation Sharingan on Izanami, trying to read the chakra flow and find the source of this power. He found his answer when Izanami absorbed the white slash into himself. "So this is your exclusive dojutsu?" Madara said coldly. "You really are a liar. Everything about seeing the past, fake. Could Otsutsuki Ishiki be another fabrication?" "Mixed blood Otsutsuki are frogs in a well," Izanami replied with a smile. "You've become the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki. Do you know what the eye on your forehead is called?" "Reincarnation Sharingan," Madara answered. "And yours?" Izanami asked. "The fusion of two nature transformations is a bloodline limit. 3 becomes a bloodline succession. Do you know which ours are?" Madara's face stayed taut, but Izanami went on. "Our eyes are bloodline limit type dojutsu. Bloodline limit dojutsu usually grant 2 or more abilities, all at the bloodline limit level." Madara's expression finally shifted. He realized his Reincarnation Sharingan effectively had one exclusive dojutsu, Infinite Tsukuyomi, and would release had been granted by the Ten-Tails. Izanami, however, continued, deliberately revealing the second of his eye's abilities. "My Reincarnation Eye combines the Rinnegan and Reincarnation Eye's powers, and it has their exclusive dojutsu. The Reincarnation Eye's is called Ameno Hoko. It can see the past and future. The Rinnegan's exclusive dojutsu is called Miketsu." Izanami formed a black substance in his palm and shaped it into a clean, double-edged longsword. Unlike the odd shape of Madara's Ameno no Hoko, this blade was simple and brutally effective. Madara's eyes flickered with unease as Izanami smiled and said, "Miketsu's ability is plain. It turns attacks into food." Before Madara could respond, Izanami struck. The black longsword slashed, and a familiar white light stormed outward, expanding in an instant. Madara lacked a spatio-temporal defense in this close-quarters attack. He lifted the Ameno no Hoko and tried to split the oncoming white wall by sheer will, but Izanami's strike was not a simple physical blow. Like Madara's own Ameno no Hoko, it was a sword of intent, a will-forged weapon. A strike empowered by rock-solid conviction could not be cleaved by another's wavering heart. Mind over matter, a clash to rival bloodline powers. Madara's conviction wavered and his attempt failed. A colossal crescent of white arced across the land of lightning, turning night to an explosive, blinding daylight for a heartbeat. Mountains, clouds, even the wind itself were erased where the slash passed. No resistance at all. The white arc swept outward and carried Madara along with it. If Izanami hadn't absorbed the slash, Madara would have been propelled an unimaginable distance. The sword of the heart couldn't shatter Madara's Ameno no Hoko, and his immortal body remained intact, but the blow left him shaken. "You know I have the Reincarnation Eye," Izanami called over the rushing air. "So why haven't I taken the Outer Path demonic statue all this time?" Madara pivoted and countered, parrying a follow-up slash while sending a truth-seeking ball condensed into a black beam at Izanami. Izanami casually deflected it with his blade and answered, "Because I wanted you to become the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki first. Then I would use Miketsu's ability to absorb the powers you unlocked by becoming one." Madara spat. "Why go to all that trouble? Wouldn't it be simpler to become a Jinchuriki yourself and take infinite chakra?" Izanami's expression turned grave. "My eye sees the past. Inside the demonic statue lies 6 paths sage mode and a contingency even the Reincarnation Eye alone cannot bypass, the safeguard for resurrecting Otsutsuki Kaguya." As Madara's focus wavered, Izanami grinned and added, "Can you still contact the wood clone that monitors Black Zetsu?" Those words cracked Madara's mental defenses. He faltered. Izanami seized the opening and struck. Madara instinctively tried to block, but the Ameno no Hoko in his hand cracked, and then the sound of cloth tearing followed. The blade split Madara's body cleanly. For a blink, the world again bloomed into that brutal daylight as Madara was halved. Onlookers across the 4 nations, trapped as they were in infinite Tsukuyomi, wouldn't see it, but the spectacle was real. Izanami did not press to finish. He held his black sword in one hand and raised the other, a golden-yellow orb of light condensed in his palm. Colored chakra flames poured from Madara's severed halves and streamed into the orb. The sight snapped Madara awake. He'd fallen into a trap and began clearing away the distractions. He did not immediately remold the truth-seeking ball into a giant sphere to encase himself. Instead, his pupils widened and he summoned 4 limbo shadows, each bearing an Ama no Hoko, and they launched invisible slashes at Izanami. Izanami laughed. The sword of the heart isn't just a blade. The black longsword liquefied like a truth-seeking ball and reformed as a hemispherical shield that swallowed the 4 invisible strikes. The slashes could not break that idealistic barrier. If they had been mere truth-seeking constructs, they'd have been sliced long before. This was the terrifying power of pure will, entirely unreasonable. While Izanami held the defense, Madara's halves rejoined, and he returned to his full form. Yet his face was hard. In the brief interval, Izanami had actually siphoned a huge portion of his chakra. In the original histories, when Otsutsuki Toneri used a giant reincarnation eye to drain Naruto from afar, Naruto was nearly emptied. Had the stolen solar energy not run amok, victory might have gone the other way. Izanami's reincarnation eye, now elevated to bloodline limit level, drained chakra even faster. If not for the genin of the Ten Tails' extraordinary resilience, Izanami would not have needed to break Madara's defenses at close range. He could simply have drained him from afar. He recovered so fast, as expected of a legendary shinobi from the Warring States. His mental fortitude is beyond belief. Izanami watched Uchiha Madara, now composed and reassembling the Ama no Hoko, and folded the golden-yellow light cluster back into his body with a faint, approving smile. Madara said nothing. Once remade, he and the 4 limbo shadows rushed Izanami, slashing invisibly through the air. Madara himself did not intervene. He had already spotted the weakness in Izanami's exclusive ocular ninjutsu. Like the Preta Path or the Reincarnation Eye's chakra beads, Izanami's eye seemed only able to absorb energy-based attacks. Physical strikes and the limbo shadow's invisible, space-time-like slashes could not be eaten, so Madara let the limbo shadows handle the assault while he supported from the rear. Izanami smiled as if amused by how quickly Madara found that flaw. You discovered Takemikazuchi's weakness in one move? A pity. You're already a step too late. The last piece is already in my hands. Now witness the difference bloodline and aptitude make. He drifted back, using a black shield to blunt the invisible slashes, and opened his palm. Marble-sized golden-yellow light orbs spilled out, each one a new version of the Reincarnation Eye's chakra bead. He fed chakra into them until they swelled, then let the black shield fall and cried out, 80. God's vacuum attack. The golden-yellow light tore through the night, illuminating the sky and land. Under Madara's wide eyes, massive golden fists of light thundered toward him. Madara's instinct was to meet them with his sword, but a sudden premonition stopped him. He liquefied the truth-seeking balls around him into a vast black sphere and cloaked himself. The 4 limbo shadows formed a human wall in front of him and unleashed sage art strikes into the oncoming torrent. The invisible slash's aftershocks were already shredded by the golden light. Those single-attribute sage art blows, however, were useless against the gigantic fists, like throwing eggs at a cliff. The limbo shadows plunged forward, Ama no Hoko held high, and the invisible divine spears met the golden fists. The clash slowed the assault, but failed to shatter it. Within seconds, every Ama no Hoko splintered. The limbo shadows were swallowed by the golden light. No ninjutsu is flawless. Even Otsutsuki divine techniques have limits. The Infernal Affairs boundary is no exception. A technique may be legendary, but its clones lack the original's conviction. Limbo shadows can wield the Ama no Hoko only because the ocular ninjutsu is supreme, but they are still copies. Their will cannot match the source. For the clones to hold against Izanami's attack for several seconds was impressive, but not endless. The 80 Gods vacuum attack broke the Ama no Hoko. The limbo shadows dispersed. Madara's ocular ability went into forced cooldown from a single blow. He could not summon them again until it ended. Yet the limbo shadows had bought him some time. The black sphere around Madara rocketed backward. The ground split, and mountain-thick tree branches erupted like serpents, lashing at the golden fists. The branches shattered on impact, pulverized, but the fists remained, barely diminished. Despite their size, the golden fists tracked their tiny target with unnerving precision. They struck the black sphere again and again, sending it hurtling for miles until the orb began to crack under the assault. A blinding white light suddenly exploded into being, expanding into a wall and colliding with the remaining golden fists. The white light didn't turn golden, it simply erased the yellow, as if correction fluid had wiped ink from paper. The cracked black sphere reverted into floating truth-seeking balls around Madara, who still clutched the Ameno no Hoko. Then he coughed blood. From behind, a transparent white pillar of light slammed into him. Madara's body stayed inside the beam, but twisted violently, bones cracking. Severe internal trauma made blood pour from his mouth. The real sequence of events replayed. After sending Madara flying with the 80 Gods vacuum attack, Izanami had formed 12 more golden beads, opened a Yomatsu Hirasaka portal, and fed the beads through. Once Madara's protective sphere shattered and stalled, a barely perceptible rift opened behind him. 12 light orbs emerged, spinning into a golden halo that condensed into an air cannon and struck Madara. The move resembled Might Guy's Evening Elephant, but on an entirely different scale. Even Guy's strongest consecutive strikes had only made one-eyed Madara bleed. Izanami's single combination strike severely wounded the two-eyed, Six Paths-powered Madara. Izanami had not been idle these past 2 years. He'd not merely waited for the reincarnation eye to evolve or focused only on cultivating his sage body. As a transmigrator who understood the plot, he dared allow Madara to become the 10 Tails bot, Jinchuriki, and reclaim the 8 and 9 tails because he knew he could handle the complete Six Paths Madara. His trump cards were Transcendent Aptitude, color, the Infernal Affairs boundary, Rinne Reincarnation Eye, color, and Sage Body, color. Celestial God of Everything and Takemi Kazuchi, his 2 ocular ninjutsu, were Infernal Affairs boundary-level techniques, comparable in scope to Infinite Tsukuyomi. The Reincarnation Eye's chakra beads and Ameno no Hoko both held absurd, almost idealistic creative power. With the right concept and ability, they could, in theory, create or destroy worlds. Izanami's sage body meant natural energy pervaded every cell. Extracted chakra became sage art chakra. Combined, his attacks counted as sage art as well as Infernal Affairs boundary techniques, enough to harm a 10 Tails Jinchuriki. 80 Gods vacuum attack, unlike Yomotsu Hirasaka or all-killing Ashbones, was essentially a taijutsu-type Infernal Affairs boundary. Its principle was simple. It needed the original chakra of the divine tree fruit, the purest, most extreme chakra, and extreme chakra control, i.e. chakra control at a color entry. Izanami lacked both at first. Rather than sink points into upgrading chakra control beyond what he already had, he invested them in Takemi Kazuchi. He was proud. He wanted to develop his own 80 Gods vacuum attack, his own Evening Elephant. He had the Otsutsuki bloodline, but his chakra wasn't as pure as Kaguya's. She had eaten the fruit and lived 1,000 years. What he could not match, he would take. The 10 Tails chakra had the same origin as the divine tree fruit. Izanami needed only a portion of 10 Tails chakra to meet the conditions for 80 Gods Vad's vacuum attack. He could steal it, digest it, thanks to Takemi Kazuchi. Takemi Kazuchi, in island nation mythology, is the god of harvest, the god of grains and food. Coincidentally, Izanami's 2 ocular techniques mirrored those mythic essences. Celestial God of Everything governs time and permanence. His eye can see past and future. Takemi Kazuchi devours energy. Izanami's eye consumes energy-based things and assimilates their nutrients. Those nutrients, the 10 Tails, chakra, and the attributes of the tailed beasts, left traces in Izanami. His personal panel would now show several new bloodline entries: lava release and boil release from the 4 and 5 tails, the 9 tails good and evil sensing, and more. He even gained a self-healing entry, albeit only purple for now, something that Sage Body and Wood Release's Hand Seal Healing hadn't unlocked. With future upgrades, he could potentially regenerate after losing half his body like a 10 Tails Jinchuriki. 10 Tails chakra and 6 Paths power are miraculous. Obito had used Kamui after death and returned his soul because he'd once been a 10 Tails Jinchuriki. For Izanami, that chakra was the last piece of the puzzle. Instead of fully upgrading chakra control, Izanami used the creative power of the chakra beads to realize the 80 Gods vacuum attack. The beads, like Ame no Nohoko, can, in theory, make the impossible real. Combined with his sage body, the resulting 80 Gods vacuum attack and its subsequent air cannon became sage art-level Infernal Affairs boundary techniques, shocking even to Madara. That was why his single strike did what the Ame no Nohoko could not. After pinning Madara, Izanami appeared above him through Yamatsu Hirasaka, clapped his hands, and released a swarm of golden beads. They linked into strings, swelled, spun at tremendous speed, and formed halos that turned into golden pillars of light, roaring down. With one motion, Izanami had fused 80 Gods vacuum attack with an Evening Elephant-style finishing cannon, hard and soft combined to devastate both exterior and interior. Madara, bound, had no time to reform the truth-seeking defense or self-destruct it. He could only watch as the pillars descended. The light columns engulfed him and slammed into the earth like tremendous bolts of golden lightning. The tremors and explosions echoed across the ninja continent, audible in neighboring great nations. The only witnesses were Black Zetsu, the unconscious Edo Tensei army, and Otsutsuki Ishiki, hiding somewhere unknown. Chapter 98, Goddess of the Rabbit appears. Otsutsuki Kaguya is startled. The pillar of golden light hammered down for minutes on end. Dust and mist never had a chance to rise. They were torn apart the moment they formed and scattered in every direction. Flowers, plants, trees, even rocks and mountains within the attack's radius were instantly reduced to dust. The shockwaves rippled for kilometers, leveling countless buildings. When the chaos finally subsided, the landscape had been rewritten. Where once there had been plains scattered with vegetation and life lay a massive basin, far larger and deeper than the Valley of the End, formed by Senju Hashirama's sage art, would release. True several thousand hands, Summit Buddha. If it were filled with water, it would become an endless sea, a measure of its immensity. The camera of fate closed in on a single spot at the basin's bottom. Uchiha Madara lay there, his body tattered and coated in blood-stained dust, flesh slowly regenerating in tiny writhing motions. He still retained some residual power. Between his two Infernal Affairs boundaries and Ame no Nohoko, a power comparable to an Infernal Affairs boundary, Madara had only 3 such boundaries. His offensive boundaries were essentially limited to wood release and Ame no Nohoko. He hadn't fully mastered either. His wood release remained basic, and Ame no Nohoko produced only crude white slashes, incapable of creating or destroying worlds. His attacks couldn't touch Izanami, who could foresee the future, but Izanami's Infernal Affairs boundary had struck him nonetheless. To ordinary shinobi and even Kage-level opponents, and even to Naruto and Sasuke, who had received the Six-Path Sage's power in the original tale, a 10-Tails Jinchuriki had been an existence of infinite chakra and ninjutsu immunity. To Izanami, however, the 10-Tails Jinchuriki was merely an exceptionally resilient punching bag. If Madara could deploy Amanamaka, all-killing Ashbones, Yamatsu Hirasaka, and 80 Gods vacuum attack in full, given his experience and cunning, Izanami would have had good reason to be cautious. But there were no ifs. Only an Infernal Affairs boundary could reliably counter another Infernal Affairs boundary, and Madara could not withstand Izanami's. The outcome had been inevitable. Izanami looked down at Madara and murmured, "Is that not enough? Or is that fellow frightened as well?" He flicked his gaze in a direction, then raised a hand and condensed a golden yellow sphere of light before casting Yamatsu Hirasaka to swallow it. A black rift opened above Madara at the basin floor. The golden orb shot up from within, and a gravity that targeted chakra alone passed through Madara's wound, siphoning 10-Tails chakra into the sphere. The familiar sensation of power being drained snapped Madara awake. Ignoring why he still lived, he attempted to summon Limbo to destroy the orb, then his body froze. I can't move." Madara's face, half torn away, contorted in horror. His eyes trembled. "What's going on?" "Madara, pathetic, aren't you?" A hoarse voice echoed in his mind. Madara's pupils contracted. "Black Zetsu? How? When did you possess me?" "You are arrogant, outrageously so," Black Zetsu sneered. To borrow Izanami's words, "As a mixed-blood Otsutsuki descendant, you're nothing but a frog in a well. You cannot comprehend the power of a pure-blood Otsutsuki. Even as a complete 10-Tails Jinchuriki, You are incomparable to that rebellious Hagoromo and mother. You faced me, son of the chakra ancestor, and only sent a wood clone to monitor me. Had you noticed what I hid inside the outer path demonic statue, none of this would have happened. Didn't I hint long ago that I was a manifestation of your will? Madara's pupils shrank further. Izanami's earlier taunts fell into place, and the terrible truth dawned on him. Izanami had not taken the outer path demonic statue or become the Ten Tails Jinchuriki because Black Zetsu had been a hidden card within the statue itself. As a product of yin-yang release, able to liquefy and extend and create clones like White Zetsu, Black Zetsu had embedded part of himself inside the statue. Six Paths Sage Mode could not detect him, so Madara never suspected. Izanami, who could see past and future, had seen the move coming. Had Izanami discovered Black Zetsu earlier, he would have avoided this entire trap. Black Zetsu answered Madara's dawning thought with a laugh that chilled the marrow. You guessed right, Madara, I am the key to resurrecting the goddess of the rabbit. Your infinite Tsukuyomi resonated with the divine tree and its fruit, waking Mother and opening a passage between Earth and the moon. Izanami weakened you enough to create the opportunity. Don't worry, your efforts won't be wasted. Mother will avenge you. Farewell, Madara, sir. With those words, a black substance like a truth-seeking ball spilled from Madara's wounds and coalesced into an enormous obsidian sphere. Another half of Black Zetsu's body emerged from the ground and fed into it. Freed from gravity, the black sphere floated upward with alarming speed. Izanami watched it with hungry anticipation. The second phase was about to begin. If he cleared it, he would earn the true prize. The sphere halted and then shrank like a deflating balloon, shifting from orb to human silhouette. The blackness bled away into a pale hue, and where ink had been, a woman took form. Long, blue-white hair trailed down past her body. Withered, tree-like horns crowned her head, and a white robe embroidered with black tomoe clung to her frame. Her skin was snow-pale, her eyes were byakugan, and a crimson rinne sharingan marked her forehead. She was Otsutsuki Kaguya, the one who had come to Earth with Otsutsuki Ishiki to plant the divine tree, who betrayed him at the sacrifice and ate the chakra fruit instead, the goddess of the rabbit spoken of in the Shinobi world. Newly resurrected through a host, Kaguya floated like an icy beauty, expression blank. In truth, she was receiving a torrent of shared memories from her son, rapidly absorbing 1,000 years' worth of important information. Izanami did not seize the moment to strike. It would have been pointless. Kaguya's combat sense and tactical cleverness might not match Madara's. Her original presence had not felt as calculated, but in raw power she overwhelmed him utterly. If Naruto and Sasuke had not used Six Paths, Chibaku Tensei, they could not have sealed her. No matter how many tricks Madara possessed, one-on-one he could not match Kaguya. She would simply shatter techniques with sheer force. Her raw stat line was terrifying. Dozens of orbs drifted around Kaguya, many of them colored. 10 entries shimmered in rainbow light: Otsutsuki Bloodline, Infernal Affairs Boundary, Rin Sharinga's Boundary, Woodfernal Affairs Boundary, all killing ash bones. Infernal Affairs Boundary, Natural Assimilation. Bloodline Limit, Byakugan. God of Taijutsu, Flight. Self-healing. Izanami clicked his tongue inwardly. Ridiculous. Outrageously ridiculous. As the host of the chakra fruit and the fusion of Ten Tails' power, Kaguya's entries made her stronger than she had been 1,000 years ago. The ancient Kaguya had never had Infernal Affairs Boundary, Wood Release, for example, and this was not even her limit. Several of her Infernal Affairs Boundary abilities had not been assigned to individual entries yet, and likely belonged to broader entries. Rabbit Hair Needle and 80 Gods Vacuum Attack might be under God of Taijutsu. Yomotsu Hirasaka and the expansive Truth-Seeking Ball could stem from Otsutsuki Bloodline, Flight, or even be composite abilities requiring multiple entries. The system left some powers ambiguous. For a subordinate who secretly ate a chakra fruit, to possess such stats was terrifying. Izanami could not imagine the entries of Otsutsuki Shibai, the strongest in the clan, rumored to have transcended the world. Transcendence aptitude, color, had given Izanami an upper bound. How far he surpassed it depended on his efforts. Otsutsuki Shibai attained power by traveling the cosmos, planting divine trees on life-bearing planets, waiting for chakra fruits and consuming them or refining them into pills to evolve. Izanami could pursue that long path or take a shortcut, the talent entry system. The system could transform an orphan into a mixed-blood Otsutsuki, a mixed blood into a horned pureblood, and beyond. But the shortcut required points, and lots of them. Izanami stared at Kaguya, greed burning in his eyes. If he could snatch those 10 colored entries and convert them into points, even conservatively, they would yield millions. He needed to know whether colored entries could be upgraded further. Sensing his gaze, Kaguya's emotionless Byakugan turned toward the ascending figure. Veins bulged at her temples, her breath hitched as if her heart trembled. Had she not shared Black Zetsu's memories and thus known this young man was a native of the planet, Kaguya might have instinctively opened Yomotsu Hirasaka to flee. There was another reason she hesitated. His features matched those of the main family, and his golden yellow eyes bore pupil power on par with the Rinne Sharingan. Even main family members needed countless pills and exceptional aptitude to awaken such ocular jutsu. Sacrificial subordinate branches had no hope. She herself had only awakened the Rinne Sharingan after eating the chakra fruit. Without it, even awakening a unique Byakugan derivative would have been astonishing. An existence like Izanami would be nobility even among the main family. Why did this planet have such an Otsutsuki? Kaguya quickly steadied herself and asked the same question Madara had. What is your relation to Otsutsuki Ishiki? Aside from her two rebellious sons, Hagoromo and Hamura, only Kaguya could create pure-blood Otsutsuki by using the primordial chakra of the divine tree fruit and her own genes. Even Hagoromo, as a 10-tails Jinchuriki, could not. Descendants, however excellent, remained mixed bloods. The world would not naturally produce a fourth pure-blood Otsutsuki. Izanami claimed no relation to her or her sons, yet his pure-blood status was apparent. If not her superior, then who? I am looking for your superior as well. Do you know where he is? Izanami asked, smiling. Kaguya murmured, as if seeing something far off. He is not lying. Her tension eased instantly. Her lips curved into a wide, wicked smile. Your arrival is a most pleasant surprise to this Empress. If I feed you to the 10 tails, this Empress will obtain a second chakra fruit. Chapter 199, New Colorful Entries, the Rogue Celestial God of Everything. As Kaguya Otsutsuki's voice faded, the scene before Izanami shifted violently. One moment, he stood over a basin beneath a starry sky and a cold moon. The next, he was plunged into a blistering chamber of lava, ringed by stone walls and a churning molten lake. This space-transcending power, an alternate dimension that could instantaneously transport a target and leave even equals helpless, surpassed even Yomotsu Hirasaka. It was the second exclusive dojutsu of the reincarnation Sharingan, Amanamanaka. Boom! Before Izanami could react, a thunderous tearing ripped through the air. Massive purple pillars of light, their fronts shaped like fists, surged toward him. They moved so fast and covered such a wide area that there seemed no time to dodge, whether by moving upward, downward, or opening a spatial rift. Kaguya, sharing Black Zetsu's memories and already aware of how sharp Izanami's eyes were, and not one for chatter herself, wasted no time. She unleashed the 80 Gods vacuum attack, an earth-shaking technique that fused offense and defense, every strike a potential killing blow. Mom, no! Black Zetsu's warning cut through. Kaguya's expression tensed. Before she could act, Izanami's lips curled very slightly. He raised his hands, palms toward the incoming onslaught. The self-guiding purple fists melted into streams and seeped into him through his palms. Kaguya's Byakugan widened. Now, Black Zetsu urged. Kaguya immediately used Yomotsu Hirasaka, a lengthening black nephim forming behind her into a giant teleportation gate. She slipped backward into it and reappeared not far behind Izanami, firing a gray bone arrow at him. The projectile whistled like an arrow through the air. With Izanami still absorbing the 80 Gods vacuum attack, he seemed set, unable to dodge the bone arrow. He had just arrived in this lava dimension and had no time to mark the place with Flying Thunder God technique or free a hand for heavenly transfer. Black Zetsu's mind clicked. This was the perfect chance. But just as hope flared, a vertical black mark appeared behind Izanami, opening into a small black window precisely where the bone arrow flew. As the bone entered that window, an identical black window opened above Kaguya's head, a portion of the bone protruding through. Kaguya, seeing this with her Byakugan, showed no sign of alarm. She only pulled back a little and dodged the all-killing Ashbone's attack. The bone arrow plunged into the lava below, instantly petrifying part of it. The remaining molten mass, as if enraged, exploded upward in towering pillars of superheated lava aimed straight for Izanami. This was Kaguya's infernal affairs boundary, natural integration, allowing her to merge with and manipulate the terrain itself, turning nature into weapons. Even the reincarnation Sharingan's absorption could not take the raw force of nature. Elemental attacks like Sage Art could wound Ten-Tails Jinchuriki and other Six Paths level beings. Izanami could not ignore the geysers of lava. He did not, however, simply melt his truth-seeking ball into a defensive wall. That would have ceded initiative and given Kaguya an opening to finish him. The Chakra Ancestor, with Yomatsu Hirasaka and Amino Minaka at her disposal, could tear or shatter a truth-seeking ball in multiple ways. Instead, a branch sprouted from Izanami's body and formed a hand. The hand condensed golden yellow light into a marble-sized orb, which then solidified into a metallic object engraved with the Flying Thunder God technique and disappeared. Izanami himself vanished with it. He and the metallic marker reappeared behind Kaguya. Izanami struck with a palm. A golden yellow pillar of light, fist-shaped, slammed into Kaguya's back and sent her flying. Ku! Kaguya spat blood, her form distorting. She immediately used Aminominaka to vanish from the lava dimension, not noticing that Izanami's reincarnation eye had been fixated on her. A golden clock appeared in his vision. Its minute hand rotated, and frames of the next 5 minutes flew past him. He saw Kaguya appear in a snowy, icy space, her wounds rapidly knitting, far faster than Madara's healing. Then her shocked conversation with Black Zetsu, her return to the lava domain, her attempt to hurl Izanami into the supergravity space with Aminominaka, and her plan to finish him instantly with all-killing Ashbones. That was Kaguya's 5-minute future. But once Izanami viewed the future, it had already shifted. Unfortunately, Kaguya herself was out of his line of sight. If he could observe her directly while rescanning her future, it might have changed further. Still, Izanami decided to play along. He extended another branch and formed a massive wood clone, brimming with chakra. Then, he used Yomatsu Hirasaka to enter the tunnel of alternate dimensions and quickly located the supergravity space that had once broken his arrogance. He did not immediately enter. He hovered outside the distorted gate, summoned his personal panel, and checked the 2 newly awakened colorful terms. God of Taijutsu, colorful, chakra control. Izanami's lips twitched into a grin. As expected, good thing I didn't waste points. Since mastering Takemikazuchi, he'd anticipated this. From the moment Kaguya ate the chakra fruit, she'd advanced into other dimensional realms and had many abilities maxed from birth, basic traits like chakra control among them. The 80 Gods vacuum attack pushes both chakra and chakra control to their limits. It's the ultimate evolution of the Hyuga's 8 trigrams empty palm. By absorbing the real 80 Gods vacuum attack, having already created his own variant, Izanami had instantly mastered the technique. That mastery had elevated his taijutsu mastery and chakra control to colorful status. He was glad he hadn't needlessly sunk points into chakra control earlier, otherwise he'd have wasted massive resources. The promotion to God of Taijutsu didn't just mean he'd learned 80 Gods vacuum attack. It signaled a massive leap in taijutsu aptitude. Practicing taijutsu from now on would be almost like cheating. He could develop techniques comparable to the Infernal Affairs boundary. He already grasped the mechanics of the 7th Gate's Daytime Tiger and the 8th Gate's Evening Elephant from the 8 Gates, and could reproduce their effects with air cannons, without opening the real gates or needing chakra beads. Referencing the originals, he might even someday devise a night guy that distorted space without dying. That was the terrifying combination of God of Taijutsu, colorful, and transcendent aptitude, colorful. While Izanami checked his terms, Kaguya materialized in the icy space as he'd seen. Her wounds knit at rates far surpassing Madara's lower limit self-healing and approaching an immortal's recovery. Though Kaguya had only eaten 1 chakra fruit and might not have hit the upper limit, her regenerative power was essentially immortal. In the original story, even Hamura with Ameno no Hoko could not truly kill her, only seal. That immutable nature now muttered in shock. How can he know my 80 gods vacuum attack? In my memories, he couldn't use his body to unleash it. It's his ocular jutsu, mother, Black Zetsu analyzed calmly. After Madara gained Hagoromo's power, he could only crudely emit white slashes. He absorbed the slashes and gained Hagoromo's power. This one can not only absorb energy through his eyes, he can convert what he absorbs into his own technique. That's why he can use the 80 gods vacuum attack. Kaguya's face darkened. 80 gods vacuum attack won't work on him, nor will Rabbit Hair Needle. He has Yomotsu Hirasaka, all-killing ash bones, and Ameno Manaka can't touch him. What do we do? Black Zetsu, Kaguya's strategic mind, offered a plan. Mother, Ameno Manaka has a supergravity space. The gravity there would crush even you. He won't be able to handle it, and he won't know you have such a space. Use that advantage. First, move him into the supergravity space, then attack with all-killing ash bones and Yomotsu Hirasaka from all directions. In that space, he can't use the combination he just used. Good idea. Kaguya's eyes lit up. She used Ameno Manaka, pulling herself and Izanami's wood clone into the supergravity domain. Because she lacked battlefield experience, she didn't notice that the wood clone's chakra was significantly lower than before. The moment the scene shifted, both Kaguya and the wood clone were crushed to the ground by the appalling gravity. Kaguya, the chakra progenitor, could barely move her head, neck, and hands. The wood clone could not even lift his head, just keeping his body from being crushed consumed his limit. After shuttling Izanami's clone into the supergravity space, Kaguya fired 2 bone arrows that ignored gravity, letting them drift slowly toward the immobilized clone. She opened a small black gate with Yomotsu Hirasaka and fired 2 more bone arrows through it. Identical gates appeared above the wood clone, plastering him with a second pair of arrows. The clone couldn't escape. All 4 bone arrows struck true. Petrification and fissures spidered across the clone's body. Victory, Black Zetsu crowed. Black Zetsu, attach to him quickly. Don't let him die, Kaguya commanded. I need his body. If I feed him to the 10 tails will revert into the god tree and absorb this planet's energy to produce a second chakra fruit. If I eat that second fruit, I won't fear Ishiki, the main family, or anyone. I understand, Mother, Black Zetsu answered. Like black slime, he slipped from Kaguya's sleeve and crawled toward Izanami's wood clone to merge with him. The instant Black Zetsu left Kaguya, a black teleportation gate opened above her. Golden yellow pillars of light, fist-shaped, erupted from within like geysers, submerging Kaguya and causing the supergravity space to shudder violently. Mother, Black Zetsu screamed, turning in horror. The golden pillars hammered the supergravity domain for minutes on end. The ground beneath Black Zetsu collapsed. He was buried as dust and raw energy spread and crushed around him. When the light pillars and the black gate finally vanished, Black Zetsu, possessing an immortal body, quickly reconstituted himself. But in the vast, ravaged supergravity space, he found he was utterly alone. Chapter 200, The Utterly Crushed Goddess of the Rabbit, without a trace of accomplishment. In the starting ball dimension, Kaguya Otsutsuki's body lay on the rippling red ground, writhing like a pale worm. She wasn't struggling to crawl so much as regenerating, wounds knitting and flesh reforming at a frightening rate. Her form had lost all humanity. She looked more like a puddle of white sludge. Only the will of the rabbit goddess, who had consumed the chakra fruit and now dwelt within this body, kept the Ten Tails' will from seizing control. If it weren't for that presence, and if Madara had been hurt so badly, the Ten Tails' will would have long ago rebelled, turning him into little more than a tailed beast puppet, or at best a vessel like Obito, human in shape but ruled by an emotionless beast. For Kaguya herself, the injuries were trivial. She only needed chakra. As her upper body finished repairing, a black rift split the green sky and Izanami's figure shot out. He looked at Kaguya, whose head was nearly fully formed again, raised his hand, and condensed a golden orb of light that sped down toward her. A terrifying suction yanked Ten Tails' chakra from Kaguya's body into that sphere. By the time her head fully reappeared and consciousness returned, Kaguya's expression hardened. Without hesitation, she activated Ameno Manaka and vanished from the starting ball dimension. She rematerialized above a green sea, the acid sea dimension of Amenominaka, and began pouring chakra into repairing herself as she muttered, "How did he find me?" Could his eyes, besides absorbing the 80 gods vacuum attack, also carry a marking-type eye technique, she wondered, and unleashed the Byakugan's full penetrating sight to scan her body for any foreign chakra. There was nothing. No mark had been left, neither on her nor on the sacrifice. Either Izanami could pinpoint her chakra inside a space-time tunnel, or his eye left a mark so subtle it left no trace. Kaguya favored the latter. She herself had Yomatsu Hirasaka and still couldn't see chakra located in an alternate dimension through a curved door. Otherwise, Ishiki would have been discovered long ago. Instead of racing back to the hypergravity dimension to find Black Zetsu, she waited in the acid sea to see if Izanami would track her. He didn't make her wait long. In under 3 minutes, a rift opened above the green ocean. Kaguya fired a bone arrow to ambush whoever emerged, but when the rift split, nothing came through. The arrow flew into the teleportation gate with no sound of impact. Then a white streak flashed across the sky and Kaguya, cut clean in half at the waist, vanished. She had once again been intercepted with a heavenly transfer technique, plus Flying Thunder God ambush. Izanami only shook his head and said, "There's really no sense of accomplishment at all." To him, Kaguya, despite 10 colorful abilities and multiple infernal affairs boundaries, posed less threat than Madara had once threatened. If he'd not known the plot and the limits on Madara's boundaries, he wouldn't even have dared to let Madara become Ten-Tails Jinchuriki. Now neither Madara nor Kaguya could pressure him. The only problem, Kaguya could not be killed. Like Hagoromo and Hamura 1,000 years ago, the only viable method was to drain her chakra and then seal her. Izanami lacked 6 paths, Chibaku Tensei, and had no sealing technique strong enough, so he would simply absorb her chakra until there was none left, and the will in Madara's body faded. A branch extended from his body as he condensed another chakra bead and opened Yomatsu Hirasaka to leave the acid sea. When Izanami tracked Kaguya to the desert dimension, he was met not by all-killing ash bones or the 80 gods vacuum attack, but a sandstorm that blurred the world and formed countless razor-sharp spears from grains of sand. Kaguya, fearing another combo attack, immediately used natural integration after transferring in, merging with the desert itself, and commanding its climate and sand to strike. Izanami merely flicked the black sword in his hand. A single flash of white light cut through the sandstorm, and the spears dissolved into nothing. There was no familiar slash pattern, just a momentary streak, and Kaguya's assault failed. After only a few uses, Izanami had mastered Ameno no Hoko's idealistic power, but it wasn't just his transcendent aptitude. The chakra beads functioned as an alternative Ameno no Hoko. Both could create and destroy worlds. The difference was that chakra beads relied on imagination. Given enough internal energy and a vivid enough concept, a chakra bead could theoretically create anything, even humans, if the user understood anatomy and wielded yin-yang release with sufficient skill. In theory, chakra beads could produce sentient beings. Ameno no Hoko required will. Both touched on spirit, on the soul. Izanami now saw why Hagoromo's soul could persist after his body died, and why Hagoromo, in soul form, might still be as powerful as before, perhaps only slightly diminished in chakra reserves. Compared to Madara and Kaguya, Hagoromo, the one who once resealed his mother and resolved the millennia-long conflict between his sons, was the most formidable of adversaries. Izanami still didn't understand why he'd been targeted so relentlessly. If someone feared him that much, why had they not acted when he was weak? There was no time for such questions. With the desert's attacks dispelled, the black sword in Izanami's hand liquefied into a sphere, then a beam of light that streaked down and turned gold like a meteor as it pierced the sand and permeated the earth. A sand tornado rose, and inside it, unmoved by the gale, Kaguya floated, white hair whipping, bewilderment in her eyes. "My connection to this space has been severed," she breathed. That was something Hagoromo of 1,000 years ago couldn't do. The long campaign between Kaguya and her sons had been possible because of Ameno Manaka and Kaguya's integration with nature. Hagoromo could nullify natural attacks, but could not sever a being's connection to a space in this fashion. Whoever now wielded Hagoromo's power could. Kaguya tried again, integrating with the desert and hurling countless sand spears and arrows to engulf Izanami. He raised a hand and formed a golden orb. Alarmed, she activated Amenominaka and disappeared into the desert space, right into Izanami's trap. The instant she arrived in the lava space, she saw a metallic object floating before her and instinctively paused. Then a familiar figure materialized, one of Izanami's wood clones. Boom. Using his reincarnation eye to monitor the lava space, the wood clone teleported the metallic object with heavenly transfer technique and flying thunder god, then appeared out of thin air and unleashed a transparent golden pillar of light that pierced Kaguya's body. She didn't get thrown back. She was held rigidly in midair. Golden pillars slammed into her from all directions, tearing through her form. Her body began to break down under the assault. From a distance, Izanami created another golden orb and siphoned Ten Tails' chakra from her. Amenominaka, like any technique, had weaknesses, a small cooldown and a chakra cost. With her frame pierced and both external and internal structures damaged, Kaguya couldn't use her dojutsu precisely enough to activate Amenominaka. She couldn't open Yomatsu Hirasaka. She could only let Izanami drain her. Perhaps lacking combat experience, or simply slow to react, Kaguya lost a great deal of chakra before she finally responded. Black matter surged within her, forming a vast black sphere that momentarily resisted the light pillars. Then the sphere vanished. Now every one of Kaguya's alternate dimensions contained Izanami's wood clones. These spaces, protected by Six-Path's Sage Mode abilities, were invisible even to the Byakugan. The reincarnation eye watched across the entire ninja world and beyond, giving staggeringly long-range vision and the ability to lock onto Kaguya's position. With heavenly transfer Flying Thunder God, the wood clones could appear before her in an instant with pre-charged attacks. Used to overwhelming opponents by force and immortality, fighting two suns with inferior stats for months, Kaguya couldn't adapt to these modern tactical strikes. Izanami, however, showed a hint of surprise as he absorbed the chakra-laden sphere. It seems the ancestor of chakra was quite scared, he chuckled. But that's exactly what I want. He opened Yomatsu Hirasaka again and shifted from the lava space back to the starting ball space. There, a mountain-sized white rabbit roared, a rabbit with 10 white tails aligned along its back. The starting ball space trembled with that roar. The green sky shifted colors. An ocean of chakra poured into the rabbit's massive body, drained from those trapped in infinite Tsukuyomi. The rabbit's reserves grew until it was only 1/3 smaller than Izanami's own reserves, and the gap was closing. Thunder rolled. The 10 tails flickered through colors. A cataclysm of wind and rain rushed toward Izanami, but the winds and the rain shimmered with colored hues. Lightning and floods appeared out of nowhere and swept across the space. The entire starting ball space had become a doomsday landscape, far beyond any natural disaster the 10 tails could ordinarily unleash. Those multicolored phenomena were the 7 nature transformations manifesting together, and the chakra filling the white rabbit came from the ninjas caught in the infinite Tsukuyomi. Chakra Kaguya could freely extract in that realm. Izanami watched those roaring, converging cataclysms, and his expression finally turned solemn.